There we go. We are officially live. Thank you. Everybody's been patiently waiting. This is the 2024 mock draft special. Only mock I've done this year. The only mock I will do. You guys know the tradition. I always wait as long as humanly possible, procrastinating for as long as humanly possible to put out a mock. And we're doing it live, mainly out of necessity. We're doing it live. EJ's here. Obviously, we're going to be live all 3 days of the draft. If you want to watch us pick by pick for roughly 17 to 18 hours, that's going to be over on the Bootleg Football Podcast channel, of course, linked down in the description below. We go live. Do we do half hour before the first round or hour?
Typically do an hour before the first round Thursday night because everybody's pent up.
So we'll do one tomorrow night, and then we'll go live before the first round on Thursday, and then we go all the way through second and third round, and then we go all the way through day 3, which is usually the big one where we're just absolutely delirious by the end of it. Straight manic. So we'll take you through every single pick, all 200, whatever the hell it is. We have thoughts and opinions on probably 90% of this class, but usually there's a few guys that we just straight up haven't watched. If you watch the Emory episode that we just put out, where he's bringing up guards from Mars Hill and DBs from Minot State. Spoiler alert, didn't get to them, but NFL teams did. So we look forward to seeing them picked. I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm not going to waste too much of your time. We're going to get straight into this mock. Now, I do have one curveball for you, EJ.
Well, you should tell the people that I have not seen this mock.
Well, on purpose.
Yes.
Because I want to get his live reactions to every single pick, just like you guys. But I, for the first time ever, have a trade.
You're doing trades?
Only one.
Oh, trade.
Mainly because I felt like this would be a very unrealistic mock if I didn't do a very specific trade. It's probably not the one you're thinking of, but it's the one that I think personally is the most likely. I do feel like it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 straight quarterbacks at the top of the first round. So I did do one trade to reflect that, because I wanted the draft to be at least semi-realistic. But other than that, no trades, straight 1 through 32. I'm going to start off with number 1. No surprises. Caleb Williams to your Chicago Bears, really our Chicago Bears, but more your Chicago Bears.
No one's claiming ownership to the team that we root for. This is the pick that's expected, like you said, not a surprise. It's cause for celebration. And I think we're at that point of the draft cycle where we can just sit back and celebrate and say, this is the best quarterback prospect the Bears have had in a very, very, very long time.
Who is better?
I mean, if you're going to go back to the 40s, you can talk about
you kind of have to.
Ball,
you got to go back like pre-World War II.
Yep. So in the modern era, absolutely in the modern draft era, which started in the 60s, this is the best Bears quarterback that there is. This is the hope that Caleb will be able to rewrite a lot of the negative history surrounding the quarterback position. I tend not to tune in to a lot of this time of the week analysis of this draft pick because there's a lot of
all the Jayden Daniels shit. I'm just tuning out.
Well,
man.
There's a lot
I
of
just don't care.
And the Bears have never had never had a 30 touchdown passer. They've never had a 4,000 yard throw. I'm like, again with this. So I just don't listen. But come Thursday night, it'll be time to celebrate. It is a time for hope and optimism, and for good reason. Caleb is a tremendous player. I agree with the pick. I agree with the fit. I personally, as a fan of the team, can't wait to see him play. I am not one of those people. I got over my reservations a long time ago and have been solidly in that corner for months at this point, many months. And it'll be great to see, that relationship starting off and, get to see him in navy and orange for the first time and really just start a new era, get going.
I don't have a whole lot of analysis because you guys have seen me talk about Caleb so much, both on this channel as well as on the Bootleg channel. He's got everything. He plays within structure. Don't let people tell you he doesn't. He absolutely does. But he's also phenomenal out of structure. He can attack every single level of the field. He's got every club in his bag. He's a great leader. All of his teammates love him. He's super smart. He's everything. He is absolutely everything you want in a franchise quarterback. I would put him up as a prospect against Trevor Lawrence. I'd put him up, dare I say, against Andrew Luck. He is that caliber of guy. So if the Bears didn't take him, they'd be making a huge mistake. Now, number 2 is where things get a little bit interesting because everybody has their own opinions about number 2. Most people would say Jayden Daniels is going to go number 2. To be honest, if this was a what I think would happen mock, that's probably what I would do. But this is not. This is a what I would do mock. And I've even gone back and forth a lot on this myself because I think if you're looking at Jayden Daniels versus Drake Maye, Jayden's probably ready to play right now. Drake might take a little time. Not because he can't process, not because he doesn't understand what he's saying, even though he doesn't have as many starts as Jayden, not even close to as many starts. I do think he actually sees the field really well. He's a good decision maker, but it's a footwork thing. And so you're trying to figure out, okay, how long is it going to take for him to retool his lower half so he's a little bit less wild out there? I don't know. I don't know, because some guys never fix it. Some guys are like Brock Purdy, where they completely tear down and rebuild their entire throwing mechanics in like 3 months. And then they show up to the 49ers a totally different player after we saw him 6 months before that. The Shrine Bowl couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Then he's Brock Purdy. So you can't really predict when a guy is just going to fix it. But I've gone back and forth on this pick because it's, do I want a guy to play now or do I want to take a risk on the higher ceiling? Ultimately, I'm going to take a risk on the higher ceiling. I'm going to put up or shut up here. I believe in Drake Maye. I believe he can fix it. I believe that you can unlock a potential top 8 to 9 quarterback in the NFL if he fixes it. And I do love Jayden, but I don't necessarily think his ceiling is that. And ultimately, we got to take swings to try to find that because you got to go through, it's not as many great quarterbacks in the NFC, but like you got to go through Jordan Love now, who's emerging to be a really good weapon. You got to go through Caleb. You got to go through, really the entire NFC North at this point. You got to go through the 49ers. You got like, there's a lot of really good teams in the NFC you got to go through that have good quarterbacks in their own right. You got to take a swing on somebody you think can go toe to toe with that. I think Drake Maye potentially could be that. What is your reaction?
I don't disagree with anything you said about Maye. In terms of potential ceiling, I see Jayden and Maye's ceiling as, again, different players, but I don't see their ceilings as very far apart. And if you asked me if I was going to be excited about Jayden Daniels throwing to Terry McLaurin, I'd be like, yes, right now I'm excited about that this moment. I think Jayden has worked to improve his game as much as anyone. He did it earlier, right? He did it between last year and this year. The improvement with Jayden was so marked as a thrower. Like, he's been an athlete. He was a good processor. He was a decent thrower before, but he really recommitted himself after the first season at LSU, really before the first season at LSU, but it took a while, and said, what do I need to do to be better than I am? Like, I think I'm good, but I want to be better than that. And it took a while. And what we saw was, one summer of work playing the first season at LSU, then another summer of work, and then like everything clicked. And he was simply just so much better as a thrower of the football all the way across. Short, long, intermediate, timing, accuracy, deep accuracy. I think he's one of the best deep ball throwers in this draft. Does he have the strongest arm? He does not have the strongest arm, but he is one of the better deep ball throwers in this draft. And so I think they're similar. I would be absolutely ecstatic with Jayden. I'm not upset with Maye because I too think there's plenty of tools there. He can fix it. He's got great rushing ability. He's the second best rusher in this class as a quarterback. Like, Jayden is clearly first. Caleb's a great runner. Maye's better as a runner. And that's going to serve him well while he's getting up to speed, no matter when he gets on the field. So,
for people that don't know, by the way, one of the reasons why Jayden really took a huge leap the last few years, especially after he went to LSU, he started working with John Beck over at 3DQB.
That's right.
Starting after his junior, it's either after a sophomore or after
end
junior.
Of Arizona State.
Yes, and that's 3DQB is one of the premier, what do you want to call it, quarterback development factories,
yes.
And so he started working with them, and then caught the tail end at Arizona State, did the transfer to LSU, and John Beck just went on Eisen's show this week and told the story about he was thrown to his guys last offseason. They're like, oh my God, he's going to win the Heisman. And we always say on Bootleg, development is not linear. And in Jayden's case, it kind of was,
until it wasn't, until it hit the hockey stick.
I think he's one of those guys. Again, I don't want to say he's maxed out, but I do think that he's closer to his ceiling than I think what Drake Maye is, and that's partially because of how far he came in college. Again, he's a 5-year guy. Maye played, I think, 2 full seasons. He didn't play his first year, I don't believe, but
no, because it was Sam.
Yeah, and so it's like if Drake played 5 full seasons and kind of was where Jayden was 2 years ago in the development arc before he even got to LSU, what would we be saying? So I believe there's still a lot more in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jayden's already there, which is why at pick 3, Patriots are taking Jayden Daniels, because I think they need somebody who is ready to go. I understand, Jacoby's there, but I see more Jacoby as like the veteran backup that's going to help a young guy more so than somebody who we're going to play for an entire year while the young guys develop. Like, there's different flavors of veterans in the quarterback room. I see Jacoby as like, hey, if Jayden takes a Looney Tunes hit again and goes down for a little bit, we can play with Jacoby and be fine. But I see him more as like the Obi-Wan to Luke type situation there. And I think that Jayden ultimately, I think the Patriots ultimately need a guy like Jayden who can play right now, and then pray to God that somebody good falls to the top of the second round, because they still need a lot more for that roster.
And I think that's where I fall, that this has nothing to do with Jacoby. I like Jacoby Brissett. I think he was one of the better quarterbacks available in that tier in free agency. He would have been my choice if I was in the similar position the Patriots were. It's not to me about Jacoby. Jacoby's not the future of the franchise one way or another. He's the now of the franchise, probably either way. This roster is not ready for a young quarterback. And what I mean when I say that is the contract window for a rookie signal caller in the NFL is one of the largest advantages in sports. And you only have 4 years to take advantage of it. Yes, you can do the 5th-year option. I understand that, but you have 4 years from the time you draft them.
Mm-hmm.
This roster is like 2.5 years away. They have like a dozen holes in this roster. It's not close, right? They have multiple holes they can fill. If they were able to get the haul that they're trying to manipulate right now, they're saying we're only moving off this spot for a gargantuan load of picks, which
they're trying to bait Minnesota so hard,
which is what you say when you want all the picks. I understand this is business. I get it. Nothing against the Patriots, nothing against any team that engages in that negotiation to pay for it. The Patriots as a team, I believe, would be better off building a foundation, because if you're 4 or 5 players away, you can fake it. You can try and patch the holes with free agency money and say, okay, the first year of a rookie quarterback is always going to be the first year of a rookie quarterback. That's not really burning anything. And then, we can do 4 or 5 moves next year and that'll get us there. If the Patriots do that, they're still a year away.
So are you team Marvin?
I'm not necessarily team Marvin.
If they pick.
If they have to stick and pick, they have to decide whether having a quarterback now and getting that sort of freshman rookie season that's typically not great out of the way fits with their development plan, or whether they just take the player with the higher grade. Because I don't think anybody's going to say Jayden Daniels has a higher grade non-quarterback, premium than MHJ, right? If you're just looking for the better player,
it's not close.
You just take MHJ. But ideally, I think the move for New England is to, sell that pick for as many picks as they can, patch as many holes as they can, and maybe take half a year or 3/4 a year off that development timetable and look for a signal caller next year. And I know people say, oh, the class isn't good. Yeah, but Jayden Daniels wasn't Jayden Daniels last year. That always happens. So try and build the floor, because if you put a rookie quarterback in that space right now, it's going to be difficult.
My one worry, if they do that, my one worry is there's always going to be a quarterback that emerges. That's going to get all of a sudden, the top 3 high. Like Joe Burrow came out of nowhere. Jayden came out of nowhere.
LSU guys,
right? Something in the water down there. There's going to be a guy next year. We don't know who it is yet, but there's going to be a guy. Could be Beck. Who knows? My worry is that Well, this is going to sound really shitty. My worry is that the Patriots are too good.
Oh,
Yes, they're 12 players away from contention.
sure.
I don't think they're 12 players away from being average. And my worry for them is that they end up at like pick 16 next year, because
sure,
if they didn't take a bunch of injuries in that defense last year, that was going to be a top 5-6 defense in the league.
Yep.
Right. If that defense comes back and plays like we think it will, which it probably will, because they still got a bunch of really good players there, and if the offense is just not completely wet hot ass,
yeah,
like if the offense is just like mildly ass, not complete ass, that could be a very average football team. And then you got to give up all the assets to go back up and get a guy anyway who you might not even have graded as high as Jayden.
So they've got to take that pick 3 and say, is the quarterback bonus big enough? And is this class deep enough? Do we like Jayden enough just as a player, regardless of what's coming next year, or just regardless of what's coming next year? Do we just take that swing? So we've got that guy in the barn, and then we build as fast as we can to try and maximize as much of that window as we're going to get, which is going to be the tail end. But can we do that? And if Elliott Wolf believes that's the play, I have no problem with them taking a quarterback. If he thinks he can get that done in 2.25, 2.5 years, good on him. It is a team without a quarterback is a team without a quarterback in the NFL. We know what they're going to be, which is not much. But right now, I feel like it's almost a disservice to a rookie signal caller to put him in New England, because expectations are going to be sky high. You're the number 3 overall pick in the draft in a talented quarterback class. And you're going to show up and be like, guys, like, where are all my guys?
Yeah. Yeah. I think no matter what, everybody's going to be right and everybody's going to be wrong. Yeah. We're going to be right for the wrong reasons and wrong for the right reasons. We're just going to let this shit play out. Again,
Sorry,
we'll talk about it in a couple days when the actual draft happens. Again, we're going to be live over on the Bootleg Football Podcast channel, link down below. So you can fight with us on draft night whenever they do whatever the hell they're going to do.
Yeah.
All right. Pick 4. I want to preface this.
Okay.
There's a lot of prefacing in this.
I was going to say, that's every pick.
I said there's only going to be one trade in this mock. This is where it is.
Okay.
It is not with the Vikings.
Yeah. I figured when you said not what I expected, because that's what everybody expects.
Right? Everybody expects the Vikings to go up. And they're trying. Like,
for sure.
They're definitely trying.
They tried last year.
Now, I personally would not do that trade. I've been on record on this channel saying that I wouldn't give up the amount of assets necessary to go up and take JJ. If JJ was at 11, I would take JJ at 11. If JJ was naturally at 6, I would take JJ at 6 if I were the Giants. But I don't like. I'll take him, but I'm not trading up for him because I still need assets to build around him, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a fine line there. That being said, as part of the trade scenario here, you also have to think about what the Cardinals want. You can't just say, "Oh yeah, they're going to take the picks and they're going to go down." They did that last year.
I was going to say, Monty did that last year. He's got a treasure trove of picks.
They already got
now.
Picks.
Yeah.
They need to start taking blue chip players.
Yeah,
they gotta build a football team eventually, right? And so I look at it from the Cardinals' perspective, not from the team that's coming up's perspective.
Sure.
The Cardinals' perspective is we can't go past 6.
Yeah.
Because we still need to get either Marvin or Odunze.
Yeah, we need to get our guy.
So for me, the most likely trade is the Giants tossing pick number 70. It's a third rounder, which if you look at the trade value chart, that's even value. It costs a third rounder to go up from 6 to 4.
Okay. To
make sure that they can get JJ McCarthy and block the Vikings or the Broncos or whoever from coming up. If I'm the Giants and all I have to give up is a third rounder and not multiple firsts, like say for Minnesota, that's a much more palatable deal just to make sure I get my guy, right? Because I don't think they're going to get him otherwise.
Yeah.
So there's that component to it. It's a trade, but it's a cheap trade. At the same time, if we're looking at McCarthy's fit there, and I do think the Giants need a quarterback.
Need and can get are two different things. I'm with you on need.
People talk about how, okay, what does JJ do well? Throwing on the move, operating a system that prioritizes bootlegs and where and he can throw on the move, do half field reads to kind of slow things down for him a little bit. He's got all the arm talent you want, all the athleticism you want. He's got size. He's a great kid. He's very coachable. He just needs a little bit more time, and he needs a lot more help, I would say, from a coaching perspective, to, how do I diplomatically say this? Hold his hand a little bit, right? So that's why people keep saying, "Oh, Minnesota," because that's what they're going to do. It's going to be a boot-heavy pass game, not a whole lot of just straight drop-back passing. Like, they are really going to
coach's former quarterback.
Yeah, QB friendly, right? Do people not remember that a couple of years ago when the Giants made the playoffs, they ran the most bootlegs out of anybody to protect Daniel Jones from being himself? Like that, Brian Daboll's a coach that does that already, and I feel like people are kind of glossing over the fact that Brian Daboll's very good at hand-holding quarterbacks that aren't all the way there. And I think JJ, as a prospect, is just a much better prospect than Daniel Jones ever was. So
I was going to ask you, like, whether or not that scouting report you just gave for JJ even reminded you remotely of what people said.
It does, but here's the thing. Daniel Jones is still like that 5 years into his NFL career.
No, I'm not saying don't replace Daniel Jones because he's the hope. He's not. Like, we're past that.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, we're past that. And we've ridden the roller coaster with Daniel Jones. We've ridden the, no, he's not good. That wasn't worth the pick. Wow, he's really bad. Hey, a couple of years ago, he actually improved. He is playing at a better level, and then back to, still not it. And at this point, it's time to cut the cord. But like, that scouting report you gave for JJ was verbatim the scouting report that a lot of people gave for Daniel Jones. So I think a lot of Giants fans might have a lot of whiplash here and be like, wait, didn't we just do this?
Yes, we did. But I do think that JJ McCarthy is a much better version of what people thought Daniel Jones was.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Again, Daboll is probably one of the better landing spots. I'm not going to say the best. One of the top landing spots because of the reasons you mentioned, right? He can handhold quarterbacks as well as anybody and keep them away from the things that will hurt them the most, usually. So we'll see. It's a good spot, and we always root for good landing spots, good fits. And, but boy, I would be straight ass lying to you if I was a Giants fan, I would be dead worried about that.
I'm not going to say I'm not worried about it, but if I'm the Giants, we got to take a swing. We got to take a swing. And if it's only going to cost a third rounder to go up, I think it's worth, I think JJ is a guy that's worth taking a swing on for me, at least. And again, I have him in the same tier as Bo Nix in my rankings. I'm not saying that I'm like the biggest JJ McCarthy guy. I'm really selling this pick. I know.
I was literally going to say, you wouldn't just hang out. I'm not saying at 6, but trade down and take a swing on Bo Nix.
It's one of those, I can't leave the first round without resetting my quarterback clock.
And a lot of people say that the Giants can't do that because just contractually with Daniel Jones, like, we cannot get out of that contract.
Watch me.
I'm with you. Like, if they got out of the Russell Wilson deal in Denver,
dude,
you can get out of the Daniel Jones deal. So I think it is because, again, we just said it with the Patriots. A team without a quarterback is a known, right? We know what they're going to do, which is not a lot. Like, you're just not going to go very far in the NFL without a quarterback. So I'm with you in terms of that crying need. It's a question of, do you want to give up assets for a quarterback who is hopefully better than Bo Nix, but or try and slide back a little bit? Again, I'm not saying Nix and 6. It's not a thing. I know it rhymes. It's not a thing. But I'm not so sure that as the Giants, I might be like, hey, unless you're going to give me a hometown discount, and Monty, why would you? I'm not doing that. I am going to get a quarterback, but I'm going to do it a different way.
That brings us to pick 5. Your LA Chargers. My LA Chargers.
Your LA Chargers.
We're in LA. I know it looks like we're on the surface of the sun, but that, I promise you, back there is Los Angeles. Whenever the sun goes down, the skyline will be a little bit better exposed.
That's right.
Not the best dynamic range on this camera, but that's okay. All right. Brings us to the Chargers. Only quarterbacks off the board. Every receiver's available. Every tackle's available.
Yeah.
Every corner's available.
I'm fascinated to see what you're saying here.
You and I have talked about this on the pod.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had Daniel Jeremiah on
Yep.
a couple weeks ago, and we had a
Yeah.
whole conversation about what they do. And we're in agreement that if this is what we think the Chargers are going to do, it's not receiver.
Yeah.
They're like, in terms of what we think the Chargers will do, it's Joe Alt or Terrion Arnold is my guess.
Sure.
What I would do is different.
Yes.
And I was on team tackle. Like from the very beginning, like February, I was
that shirt.
chanting team tackle. Like Joe Alt, you are an LA Charger.
Yeah.
And then Keenan got traded. Changed the math a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying to be nice here. I'm not completely out on QJ, but 1 foot is, you know. Sure. So I can't go into this year with him potentially being the top target on the outside. He is the developmental number 2 that hopefully can be the yak guy. He can be the Deebo Samuel type guy. He's not Deebo, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of role that we hope he can be. We still need our Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
I know they're not going to do it, but for me,
mm-hmm.
Marvin Harrison Jr., you are an LA Charger. You're the number 1, the new number 1. Now the old number 1 and the old number 2 are gone.
Meet the new number 1. Same as the old number 1, but different.
I can't go into this year with QJ potentially being the top receiver. I just can't.
You just don't want Chargers fans to burn your house down.
Good luck.
I know.
You want to bring down a skyscraper? Go for it.
No, Chargers fans, in large part, have been chanting wide receivers since the beginning of this draft season. We'll have nothing to hear of tackle or toughness or we're going to run the ball. Greg Roman, forget it. We need a receiver, and I don't disagree. And I got to ask this. I was on Chicago radio a night or two ago, and they said, well, what if Poles does do it? What if he pulls the trigger and he goes and gets Marvin Harrison Jr. with their second pick through however they need to do that? I said, look, if I wake up on Sunday and Marvin Harrison Jr. is a Bear with Caleb, I'm not sad.
No, they could have no picks the rest of the draft, and I don't give a shit.
I'm not sad. He is a tremendous player, one of the very top players in this draft, regardless of position. Watching him catch passes from Justin Herbert, even if it's only 5 a game because Greg Roman doesn't like to throw the ball, that's fine. I will revel in those 5 passes because they will be things of beauty. And I love beautiful football, so I'm not against it. Again, I don't necessarily think it's what's going to happen. Would I be sad if it did? Would I not celebrate on Thursday with you on our live stream if we were like, MHJ and woo, Justin Herbert Rockets? Like, let's go. It'd be fun.
Then you'd be done because there's no more Bears picks, and you're just like, all right, I'll see you guys next year.
Yeah.
Like but I think most Bears fans would be elated by that.
But I think Chargers fans too. Like, if MHJ ends up catching passes from Justin Herbert, you're not sad about that. Like, you'll find a tackle. This is a tackle-heavy draft as well. Now, I do think the tackles are going to go faster than the wide receivers do. So it's that classic question of, if I get MHJ at 5, what tackle do I get?
Yeah,
later
more
on
tackles are definitely going round 1 than receivers.
100%.
And this is still a very good receiver class, one of the best receiver classes and that's saying something, that we've had in recent memory. But I'm sure this happened to you as I was kind of going through my tackle list. The tackle class is even better.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many, and they're all going to go in the first round.
Well, not all, but because they can't, but you're literally going to get to some of, I don't care who you have ranked down at 11, 12, 13, 14.
That's the thing is, like, tackle 11 this year is what? Tyler Guyton?
Yeah, I mean, they're still good.
and you still might go in the
you're
first
looking
round.
At absolute freaks like Patrick Paul, and you're like, if I'm, let's just say Tennessee, I said this the other night, if I have Bill Callahan as my new OL developer in Tennessee and Patrick Paul is sitting there with one of my later picks, I'm like, yes, please. That guy's going to be a good player very quickly because I have a great OL developer, which is a huge sort of bonus, like force multiplier for NFL teams. And Patrick Paul is Patrick Paul. He's a freaking giant. He moves really well, and a good OL coach is going to make him good fast. So it's that balance of what am I getting in first versus we know they need to go tackle, or at least we think they know they need to go tackle. What are they going to get to balance it out? And we'll see. But look, starting with Marvin Harrison Jr. is not a bad start. There's no world in which that exists.
That brings us to the Cardinals, who we know really love Joe Alt. This is actually something that maybe hasn't been talked enough about, but Joe Alt's on the table for the Cardinals, even over Marvin. Like that, we know that to be true. I'm fascinated to see what they do, whether they value left tackle higher than the number one receiver. Again, personally, I value Marvin over Joe Alt, but they might see it differently. All I know is they like Joe Alt because fucking everybody likes Joe Alt. And Jonah Williams is not good enough for me to not take Joe Alt.
No.
However, Marvin's not the only receiver that I have valued over Joe Alt.
True.
So, again, it's not what we think they'll do.
Yep.
It's what we would do or what I would do. What I think the Cardinals might do is take a long look at Joe Alt. What I would do is make Odunze an Arizona Cardinal.
I hate you.
I know you do.
Okay.
I know you do.
As
Because
long as we're clear about
all
that.
Bears fans desperately, and I mean desperately, want Odunze in Chicago. Odunze, not Odunze. I have him in the same tier as Marvin in my receiver rankings. I know you do too, even though we haven't flipped. You have Rome as your wide receiver 1A to Marvin being your 1B. Marvin's my 1A, Rome's my 1B. So it's all, we're talking microscopic.
Yeah, these are very thin slices of the garlic at this point.
Which is why when I'm talking about a trade down with Arizona, it's not that they're going to 6 because they got to get Marvin. They're going to 6 because they got to get Marvin or Rome. So they're getting whoever doesn't get taken at 5, right? Or if the Chargers do take a tackle, then they can just take whoever they want. But I have Rome in the same tier as Marvin. He's a phenomenal player. Absolutely phenomenal. He's like the ideal X receiver, which they desperately need.
Yep.
Their offense was very different with and without healthy DeAndre Hopkins on the field, or non-suspended DeAndre Hopkins. Like when they had just the one guy who could go out there and beat press coverage and just kick ass, and who, no matter what, was going to bring the ball in on 3rd and 7 when somebody just had to make a play. It's like, all right, we're going to throw up a fade. Go get us a first down. Their offense was very different when Hopkins could do that for them versus when Hopkins was not on the field. They don't have that. I like some of their other receivers, but they don't have that specifically. They could not leave the top 10 without getting that, because believe it or not, there's actually not that many guys that can do that in this class. There's a bunch of good receivers, not good X receivers. Rome is arguably the best pure X receiver in this class. So getting him at 6, I think not only is a great value, because you're also picking up the 3rd round pick on top of that to just keep stacking guys, but he fills what they need a lot. Again, still think tackles in play for them in terms of what Monty will actually do. But if it was me, Rome Odunze, Arizona Cardinals.
A, I hate you. B, Monty Osborne could pull another masterclass he did last year by stacking all those picks. He moves down, adds 3rd rounder, picks up whoever here is left over that they like out of the top 2, let's just say designated X wide receivers, even though I think Rome's a better X than Marvin is. That's a discussion for another time. They come away with their top receiver. They go 5-6 more picks, and they're like, there's a tackle there we want. They can pull the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
They have the picks, and even more now with the extra 3rd that they just got from this trade to go right back up into the top round and go, you know what? We're not letting X off the board because we want that tackle. We're going to come away with, Marvin or Rome and Fuaga or Fautanu or whoever, right? Yeah. And we came out of the top round with our pair. Monty comes out smelling like gold, and he should. He was extremely disciplined last year. I was so curious throughout our draft live stream, again, over on the Bootleg channel last year, like, man, they trade down again? Monty's got a whole lot of picks. What's he going to do with all those? And now I'm fascinated to see what he does with all those.
Moving on to our next pick. We've talked about Joe Alt like 4 or 5 times
at
this
exactly.
point, but he hasn't actually been picked. Titans, I'm going pure chalk here.
Yeah.
Joe Alt, because What else are they going to do? I mean, they kind of have to. Like, you're looking at the offensive line, and I think they've done a good job of rebuilding a lot of it.
Yeah.
You got Skaronski at guard, Cushenberry, Brunskill as your interior 3. You got Dylan Radins at right tackle, which, like, isn't great, but it's okay.
Looks a whole lot better with Joe Alt at left.
But it looks a hell of a lot better with Joe Alt at left tackle.
And I mean, you look over at Bill and you're like, Bill, you want Joe Alt? He's like 6'8", moves like crazy.
320, could play tight end. Yeah, sure.
He's good in pass blocking, great in run block. Yeah, I'll take him. I could do a few things with him.
He's one of the cleanest players at any position in this class.
I agree.
He's also one of the only guys who I think wire to wire, like, we got to January. Yeah, like everybody's like, Joe Alt's OT1. And it just never
So moved. A lot of people that don't have him there, and I understand that for different reasons, but it is very hard to watch all the Joe Alt snaps and not go, your floor is like most people's ceiling, right? Your worst case scenario is you're really darn good. You might not be elite at any time, but you probably will be.
Yeah, this might sound insane. My comp for him, keep in mind this is earlier in his NFL career when he was still healthy before injuries got him. Jake Long.
Sure. I can see it.
Same build.
Yeah.
Same explosive first step. Same ability to just, like, when he gets his hands on you, you're done because he's so damn strong, so fluid. Guys that are 6'7", 6'8", very rarely also have the kind of core strength where it doesn't matter if they have a leverage disadvantage. Like, guys that are that tall, typically, they have to win with their reach. They have to win by getting a good initial strike to blunt you before you can get into their chest because they're 6'7", 6'8". They're not going to get lower than you ever. Yeah. Where Joe Alt, yes, he can do that. He can still reach you and kind of blunt you. But if he's coming in wide because he's worried about like a double swipe or something like that, if he's coming in wide with like that Dwayne Brown, like real wide hands, and you get into his chest, he's so freaking strong.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, I don't know if he wrestled or whatever when he was growing up, but that guy's core strength, despite being that tall, is unreal. It's like you're running into a sequoia tree. Like, it's just ridiculous. He is one of the cleanest prospects in this class.
I would agree.
If the Titans don't take him, I would be stunned.
If he's there and they don't take him, yes. I would be like, what's up? Like,
yes.
What are you doing? What do you think is better than that for your football team?
Brings us to the Falcons, who we just found out today are not going to have this pick taken away for whatever Kirk Cousins shenanigans were going
on. By
on.
the way, that's just an incentive, right?
Oh, yeah, not getting punished.
For a whole year?
Yeah, of course. Like,
oh, I want to go after Stafford, and you're going to defer my draft pick.
It's not making people think twice about it. Yeah,
oh, so you're encouraging me to do it. Okay, cool. Neat.
My guess, not guess, is there were a bunch of options on the table, and they hadn't decided what to do yet because there's a lot of ramifications for it.
Many.
And eventually, when you get to within 72 hours and teams got to know, like, they have to know what they're supposed to be doing.
Today was the deadline to figure out, like, are we doing this, folks?
And they just weren't there yet. They hadn't figured it out yet. So, like, fuck it. We're not gonna drop this on you the day before the draft. So, because yes, they have to be punished, but I would say dropping a punishment on them with 24 hours to figure it out would be a little excessive. And so they're just like, screw it, we'll do it next year. And that honestly might result in the picks getting taken away being worse because it's getting deferred, because it's like, it's coming and the league has to set an example. But I think the clock ran out. I think they were going to do something and they were still debating it, and they didn't want to drop it the day before the draft because that's just not fair to anybody, not just for the Falcons, but for the other teams that are behind the Falcons that then have to redo all of their scenarios and everything like that. Like, it's just a pain in the ass for everybody.
It would be a huge shift for sure.
Yeah. Because, like, that's what teams do is they run in-house mock drafts.
Oh, yeah. And they've been doing it for weeks.
Yeah. And so it's like, if you're all of a sudden doing that and you're changing the top 10, all the different permutations that would come from that, they have to redo them in 24 hours. Like, it's just not fair to anybody. So that's why I think they delayed it, is they just didn't want to make things more annoying than they had to be. Anyway, Falcons. They're keeping the pick. It's a pretty good team on paper.
Sure.
Like, very good team on paper. I think they have a lot of firepower on offense. We love the offensive line. At least 80% of the offensive line we love. I don't think they need any more help there. You could argue receiver, but the 2 receivers I would have taken here are gone. So I'm looking at the defense, and specifically I'm looking at edge rusher.
Yep.
You could make arguments for any of the top 3 edges here. I know some people advocate for Dallas Turner. Some advocate for Jared Verse here. Some even advocate for Latu all the way at 8.
Yep.
Some people advocate for interior with either Johnny Newton or Byron Murphy. I've seen both of them mocked here. I've seen some people say Brock Bowers, because surely they can't fuck up 2 top 10 tight end picks in a row, right? I personally, when looking at all those different options, ended up at Dallas Turner. Because even if he's not as polished as Latu yet, or even as polished as, I'd say, Jared Verse is yet, he is such an overwhelming physical talent that I'm drafting him and I'm trusting my coaches. This is an ultimate I trust my coaches pick.
Yep.
Not that he's like crazy raw.
Nope.
But you're trusting your coaches to get him to where he needs to be.
Yeah.
He is underdeveloped as a pass rusher. There's no debate about that. But he has tremendous length, burst, bend. He's a good run defender. Like, I think you can drop him in coverage and he can hold his own because he's so athletic. Like, every tool you want is there. And it's even different than I would say like the Trayvon Walker, thing a couple of years ago.
It's farther along.
Different kind of players, right? Yep. But I'm trusting my coaches to get him there, because if he does get there, we're looking at like an all-pro caliber edge rusher.
Yep.
So I'm trusting it.
Yeah, and he's an extremely clean prospect. We just talked about that with Joel. Dallas Turner is one of the cleanest prospects in this draft in terms of very few people have any, if any, questions about him. The physical talent is unmistakable. In terms of burst, he has surprising power. A lot of people think, and this happens when a guy is twitchy or fast, they go, well, he doesn't set the edge. That's not the case with Turner. Like, you watch his long arm, you watch him push tackles back with long arm. And if you can do that, you can set the edge for a run too. Like, the mechanics are similar. And if he's got the power to do that, to just push tackles, back into the quarterback, you can set the edge on the run too. And in addition, you're more explosive than bursts around the edge. And in addition,
you gotta smell that.
Just smell it. Now you handed it to me. That's not happening.
If you guys don't know, I was in Ireland last week. And of course, while in Ireland and Northern Ireland, I stopped by Bushmills. Yeah. And they have a distillery exclusive there. You can only get it at the distillery in Bushmills in Northern Ireland.
Woody.
That's the acacia wood finish.
I know, but this is woody.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is a sin, but it's a sin both ways for me, so it's not any worse. That
you poured that in the glass? You poured the Jameson?
I did, but it's Protestant whiskey, so I'm okay.
Isn't that like a...
It's a double sin. It
like an actual
out.
Crime?
No, it's a double sin. It cancels out.
So it's acacia wood finish, and it's phenomenal. So if you're drinking at home watching this, cheers to you.
Happy draft week, buddy.
Happy draft week. We're finally fucking here. We can sleep next week. Soon
the smoke will clear, and we'll know what's actually going to happen. But look, Turner, the Falcons, is one of the chalkier picks. It's been around for months. Mina was on our show, and she said, look, if Atlanta doesn't take a pass rusher, I might have to fly down them and beat them around the ears because they just have to get it done. Would make a lot of Falcons fans happy. I think now and into the future, again, it's not just a now pick you did what we expected you to do, but the chances that Turner develops, all the tools are there.
It really just comes down to, do you trust your coaches? And looking at the staff Atlanta has assembled, I trust their coaches. Brings us to the Bears. It's half the reason I wanted to pour a drink, is I felt like we're going to need this for this discussion.
Sure.
Pour one out. Rome Odunze.
Pour one out, Bears, but not one of these. We're not pouring this out.
The hope lasts a little while, but has been dashed.
We pretty much expect that he's going to be off the board, though, because he is a great player. He's just a great player.
If he makes it to 9, I would eat my shoe. I don't think he will. Anyway, that then leaves us with the very solemn. I know, it's fucking good, dude.
That's so a lot, good. And it's all the good things.
We are in the scenario where Can't get Rome. Can't get Marvin.
Can't get Alt.
Can't get Alt. What do we do?
Yeah, and again, if you're sticking with your rule that there's no trades, I'm fascinated to hear who you come up with, because options are a little bit limited. You're still, come on, you're only 8 picks.
Fucking A, dude.
Right? It's the end of that. The other one was the start.
It's so good.
That's the end. It finishes very, very well. I'm fascinated to hear who you picked. This is your mock draft and what you would do, because this is a tough scenario. And this is one of the, I've called it nightmare scenario before, where basically 2 of your top choices are gone. Nobody's calling because there's no trades in this one. You got to stick and pick. What do you prioritize of what's left? And it's not that we're bereft of talent. There are certainly plenty of first round players left, but where does it line up with value at 9?
I see it like this. If you have 2 players that have roughly equal grade, and I do,
okay,
at different positions, one's a tackle, one's a receiver. So it's a different discussion than, say, Marvin versus Alt for the Chargers, right? Because Marvin, I have higher grade on, right? And Rome, higher grade. It's a different discussion. If you're talking about somebody with an equal grade, which for me is Malik Nabers and Troy Fautanu, then it comes down to philosophy, team building philosophy.
Correct.
My team building philosophy, which I will explain in just a second, brought me to Troy Fautanu for the Bears, because they're getting Caleb. Here's why all that matters. If you have the guy at quarterback, which we think Caleb will be the guy,
sure,
protection matters more than having an elite receiver, which they already have great receivers. They have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. It's not like they have nobody, right? This is a different discussion than like the Bengals, where Jamar Chase versus Penny Sewell, and it's like, we like T. Higgins, but we really need a number 1. And I've never seen T as a true 1. I see him as a high-end 2. And it's like, we really need a number 1. Okay, let's take Jamar Chase. And it worked out. It absolutely worked out for the Bengals. But for most teams, if you have the guy, protection is more important than receivers. You look at what happened with the Chiefs. They had the guy, Tyreek. I mean, they still have Travis Kelce, but they were a one-man show as far as receiving threats go, with Travis Kelce being the one-man show. But all of the assets that they got from trading away Tyreek and all the money they saved from trading away Tyreek meant that they could basically buy an offensive line.
Yep.
They bought one.
And they did.
And they drafted well. They got Creed, they got Trey, but they bought an offensive line. And it worked because they had the guy. Because if you give the guy time, I'm not saying it doesn't matter who he's throwing to out there.
It matters less.
But it matters less.
Sure.
Rashee Rice was, if we take Travis out of the picture, Rashee Rice was their number 1 receiver this year. He had an average depth of target of 4 yards, and they won the fucking Super Bowl. If you have the guy, protection is what you want.
Sure.
So I would also use Houston as an example.
Sure.
They got CJ Stroud. Their top 2 receiving targets were both 3rd-round picks, Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Very good 3rd-round picks.
Yep.
But they were 3rd-round picks. They didn't invest top 10 resources or even first-round resources into anybody on that offense other than the offensive line. Yep. They spent a first-round pick on Titus. They spent high assets to get Laramie and paid him an ungodly amount of money. But that's what mattered. Yep. Because if you have CJ Stroud and you give CJ Stroud 2.5 seconds, Nico Collins can be your number 1 receiver. Tank Dell can be a high-end number 2 for you because you have CJ Stroud pulling the trigger. Give the guy time, and they will cook with, I'm not saying anything, but almost anything.
And you got more than anything in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen.
Exactly. They already got guys. Yeah. So I understand wanting Malik Nabers because it's fun.
Sure.
Of course it's fun. But I look at this Bears offensive line, and you and I were talking about this earlier, unrelated to this discussion with Troy Fautanu. We think Braxton Jones is a serviceable left tackle. I'm not saying he's a Pro Bowl left tackle. He's serviceable.
But he's not a hole in the water.
Tevin Jenkins, we like what he's done, but he's also not the most reliable guy in terms of being on the field.
Yep.
Ryan Bates is a guard that they're converting to center. We got Nate Davis, who also wasn't on the field for different reasons, but it's not like they have a very reliable interior trio there that we can like count on, that we've seen a lot of good reps from them in Bears uniforms in the past. Then you got Darnold, right, who had a strong rookie season. But it's not like the offensive line settled.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at, okay, philosophically, how do we make Caleb succeed? You make Caleb succeed by giving him more than 2.5 seconds. That's where USC failed last year. They didn't give him time.
Yep.
And so he had to, run around and play hero ball under pressure constantly. But if you give Caleb time, like he was executing that USC offense when he had time at a high level with Taj Washington and Brennan Rice. He didn't have DJ Moore out there. He didn't have Keenan Allen out there. Like I see Caleb as such a good quarterback prospect that what he needs more is time to throw to DJ Moore, no pun intended. He needs that more. I'll say more one more time.
How many more times can you say more?
He needs time more than he needs Malik Nabers. And I look at Troy Fautanu. You want him to compete for the left tackle spot? He could do that. He could probably beat out Braxton, to be honest. He can play any of the interior 3 spots. So you have a guy who can play 4 out of the 5 offensive line spots that you think you might have settled, but you're not completely convinced you have settled.
Sure.
And he gives you injury insurance because it's the Bears offensive line. When are they ever healthy? Almost never. So if Braxton goes down and they take Malik Nabers, they're fucked because it doesn't matter how open Malik is getting.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like if Braxton goes down, who's playing left tackle for them? Nobody. Like they don't have anybody. I'm not moving Darnell over. Oh, so we can get worse at 2 positions because you're flipping a second-year tackle over left tackle who doesn't play left tackle? Like we're going to downgrade it both now? Like, no. Like you need a guy. Good at that. They did it with Tevin.
They do it with everybody, and it is one of the more frustrating trends in sports. And I buy your argument. Like there's nothing that you said in your argument that I disagree with. I'll flip it a completely different direction and say the other thing a young quarterback needs to keep pressure off of him is not to get boat raced every week. And flip to the other line, building football teams from inside out, because we're talking about the same thing, just the mirror image. You're talking about the defensive line. If Montez Sweat goes down, that defensive line is hyper average.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing there. So with a bunch of guys, I'm not going to say a plethora of guys, but a bunch of guys in this draft that have multi-position flexibility, whether it be tackle to guard, which are handy, or guard to center, which there are a lot of those as well. Do you prioritize a different position that is more impactful on the defense and go after a pass rusher of your choice? I would say it's probably Byron Murphy, or in my mind, Latu, right? Pick your interior pressure, exterior pressure.
Whoever. Yeah.
I don't care. But either one gives you a threat on defense that really is going to give Montez Sweat some balance and less pure double teams. And then at pick 75 again, because this trade has this, draft has no trades, go get somebody like Mason McCormick or, Dominic Pooney, a little bit farther down if you like him, and say the same thing. This guy gives us multi-position flexibility so that we're not going to have the same thing that we've had for the past 2 years of guys going down, the line falling apart, and basically throwing up our hands and going, well, now the offense doesn't work. I guess we're screwed.
I so worry that the same thing would happen to Caleb that happened to Justin, which is we're going to throw him in there against Myles Garrett with 5-man protections and 5 guys out there who can't protect against Myles Garrett. And like that game, I swear to God, that game broke him.
It was a pasting. It was really bad.
It broke him. And he had his moments after that, but
I think the mental side broke him more than anything, which is
never got past it.
We're going to throw you in there and we're not going to change anything. Good luck. And that was the approach. And that's terrible coaching. Let's be honest. That's just negligence from a coaching perspective. And as a young quarterback, you're cursing, well, I'll show you, I'll do it anyways. Right. Well, turns out the NFL is the NFL, and no, you won't, especially not against Myles Garrett with, no specifically schemed play calls. And you're going to get pasted. And then you have the physical ramification of that, but you also have the mental ramification of they tossed me to the wolves. What does that mean they really think about me? And the combination of the two was a lot.
I mean, Caleb's a better prospect than Justin was, obviously, but I think Justin would have ended up as a better player if he went to literally any other team.
Well, if you had better
they weren't
protection-
ready. They weren't ready.
Again, which is my New England argument. And again, it's not so much offensive line in New England, but just that is a team that's going to struggle in a lot of areas, and the quarterback is going to be pressed to say, I got to make something up here or else we got no shot.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think Fautanu could start at 4 of their 5s. Again, I'm not taking Fautanu to be a depth player. He's going to play.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the best 5.
The thing is, he can play at 4 of those 5 spots. And so he is somebody you draft to eliminate your weak link, whoever it is.
Right.
Whether it's Bates, whether it's Tevin.
Or somebody
whether
goes down with a training camp injury, and then you're like, we're okay. As opposed to, oh my God.
Yeah. Offensive linemen, especially great offensive linemen, are worth their weight in gold. And he's one of the best. He's my OT2 in this class. All right, that brings us to the Jets. I struggled with this one.
It is a difficult pick. A lot of people are talking about breakpoints in the draft. Certainly Patriots, which we've already covered. Wherever Minnesota might trade up to is a breakpoint. What Chicago does at 9, whether or not they trade down, that's a breakpoint. It's like people kind of get exhausted of breakpoints before we hit 10, and then it's like, oh, the Jets.
They can go anywhere.
Correct.
Malik Nabers makes sense.
I want to see where you went, though, because of that. That makes it even more interesting.
Oh, you're going to hate it.
I'm not going to hate it. Connor's going to hate it.
Connor might hate it. I don't know. Yeah. Malik Nabers is a possibility. Bowers is a possibility.
Yep.
I briefly flirted with like, oh man, what would Sauce and Quinyon look like? Like, just like they don't need him. Like they're fine at corner, but
be fun.
It'd be fun, right?
Yeah.
I flirted with a bunch of different things, and I was like, hey man, we could throw Johnny Newton in there just because we can. Yep. Like they did a lot of work in the offensive line. Like the starting 5 right now, I like it.
Not terrible.
However, those guys might only be on the team for 1 year. Or at least all of them might only be on the team for 1 year. And so I'm kind of future-proofing the roster here with somebody who could be a tackle or could be a guard.
Bold move, Cotton.
I know. I love my offensive linemen. You know that.
Future-proofing the Jets roster. I'm sorry. I'm just going to chuckle at that.
I'm not fully convinced they're going to get out of the month of October with that starting 5 healthy, just considering the history of literally all of them.
Yeah.
So I'm taking Taliese Fuaga from Oregon State here because he can play tackle or guard. And so, yes, he can compete for a starting spot.
And will
compete for a starting spot because he's that good. But if somebody goes down, rather when somebody goes down, because they will, it's the Jets.
It's the Jets.
They're not completely screwed.
Yeah.
They've got receivers. They've got weapons. They've got Brees in the backfield. Yep. Ideally, Aaron's coming back healthy. We like the defense. Like they don't need a lot in the top 10.
Hence they can do anything.
Again, I fully understand the Malik Nabers and the Bowers argument, but I got some tight ends that I really like on day 2 for them that fills that kind of role for them. Like that kind of H-backy type role. There's like, if I'm, let's just Jaheim Bell.
Let's just rabbit hole, shall we?
Let's rabbit hole. Ben Sinnott, Jaheim Bell. Like there's actually kind of like a bunch of H-backy type tight ends in this class that they can get on day 2 or early day 3.
Westover.
Late day 3.
Late day 3, but I love him. He would be such a solid guy.
Bowers is better than them.
Oh yeah.
But I think the well on offensive line is going to dry up a lot quicker than people think. Like, yes, there's a bunch of them, but they're all going to go.
First round is going to be OT heavy.
It's like in terms of total offensive linemen, we could be looking at like 14 between interior, 14. So it's like they're going to go. You got to get them now if you're going to get them. We can still get an H-back. We can still get a receiver.
For sure.
You ain't getting Fuaga.
No, Fuaga's a player of Fuaga's caliber is not going to be available later on. And like you said, this is a team, much like the Bears, but in a different way, that has been, snake bitten, certainly on the offensive line. Or I'll just say on the offense, right? Obviously, with Rodgers going down so quickly last year. But the offensive line's done it as well. And they have felt sort of dead in the water by the end of October in the past couple of years. And as a team, it's very difficult as a GM, as a coaching staff, to go in and say, well, we're done by Halloween. because we didn't do our homework. And I would imagine they want to avoid that. And a pick like Bowers, which makes a ton of sense, doesn't really do that for them.
Let's get to Jets fans clearly love it in the chat, by the way.
Oh, do they? Jets fans love everything. We're sorry.
I could give them Marvin in a trade up, and they'd be like, "That's too many assets." Ah! All right, let's get to the Vikings at 11. They're kind of screwed here because they're not getting a quarterback, and they're staring down the barrel of Sam Darnold starting for them.
They have to get a quarterback, though.
I really heavily debated, especially because I think Bo Nix can go here and it would make sense.
Sure.
I really heavily debated, are they desperate enough?
Or do they think, are they willing to play poker with Nix? Because Nix, again, would be at this point 6. And
no, he'd be 5. He'd be QB5. Only 4 went.
You don't think Penix is going to the Raiders? Not in your draft, maybe, but
I have Penix going. So
okay. Anyway,
I have Penix going, but not there.
Nix would be 6, right? And do you gamble? Again, this is the biggest poker game on the planet. First round of the NFL draft, biggest poker game on the planet. Does Kwesi say, we'll do something here at 11. It's going to help our team because we have needs as well outside of quarterback. And we got Bo Nix in our back pocket. We're going to go for it at 20, whatever. Or we're going to trade up to get him if we feel like the Broncos are going to take him or whatever else.
So if I am them,
if you're the Vikings,
if I'm the Vikings at 11, I am strongly, I bit the fuck out of my lip. That was great. Love doing that live.
I was like,
that felt great, chat.
I thought you were trying to stop saying something.
Oh, that was me just biting the shit out of my lip. That was great.
I did that the other night with spicy pork yakisoba. It was lovely.
Luckily, we have disinfectant.
That's right.
So.
Medicine.
God, that hurt. Okay. Anyway, sitting there at 11 with the Vikings, strongly considering Bo Nix. Strongly. Especially because I have him going basically right after this. But I was debating, okay, are they desperate enough or can they go somewhere else and then come back on day 2 and do a Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler type gamble? It's what's the difference in the gamble on Pratt versus the gamble on Nix?
I think it's significant, but
I have them in different tiers entirely. Yeah. I don't besmirch anybody for saying the gap is that wide that you got to take him now. But if I'm the Vikings, knowing that I'm at 23, I'm willing to take that gamble that one of these quarterbacks is gonna find their way there. Whether it's Nix, whether it's Penix, I am willing to take that gamble that they're going to be there. That enough receivers and offensive linemen and all that are going to go.
Penix to JJ, just saying. If that connection happened, if we're talking about 2 particular players.
Oh, it would be incredible.
It would be transcendent.
It would be amazing.
Would be so fun to watch.
So I'm going to roll the dice here.
Okay.
At 11, knowing I got 23 in my back pocket, I'm going to go Johnny Newton. Because, it's funny, early in the draft process, that was the only player that everybody was mocking to the Vikings because nobody thought they were going to be in the quarterback market at 11. Then they made the trade and made it very apparent they were going to trade up, at least try to trade up. And so Johnny Newton was the Vikings pick for everybody. And I feel like now we're kind of coming full circle to that. Even after free agency, they still need him. They still need an interior pass rusher who also happens to kick ass against the run. He reminds me, he's not built like him, but play style wise, I've seen people throw out Akeem Hicks for him, which I get it.
I don't, just because watch both those players, love both those players. I wouldn't pick those 2 styles. I'm saying this is the Wayback Machine, but I'm saying this is the spiritual successor to John Randall.
He's bigger than John.
He is bigger than John, but he plays like.
Oh, you're just talking in terms of just style. Melting your face
Hicks
off.
Hicks is much bigger than Newton, way bigger.
He's it's funny. He's kind of at the midpoint between Akeem and John, from 280 to 325.
Hicks didn't play 325.
What did he play at?
He was big. Akeem Hicks is a bear of a dude.
Was he over 325?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, and Johnny Newton is right at 300. So again, it's leaning a little bit more towards
I
John.
didn't
John
realize he played that big.
Hicks is a big dude, like big, powerful dude. Which look, Newton is also powerful. I just think play style wise, like Newton is the spiritual successor to John Randall because he is a terror inside, absolute menace on pass rush. As you said, still effective, has a ton of TFLs, ton of stops, far more than any other DT in this class, including guys like Byron Murphy who are being mocked above him pretty regularly. And I get it. It's about potential. But the funny thing is they're the same age. Typically you would look at Newton and go, oh, well, the reason Newton's going later is because he's 23 and Murphy's 21. No, they're both 21. They're the same age.
Chat said Brett has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and have the Broncos draft Bo Nix. Buddy, I got great news for you.
Comedy is our middle name.
Bo Nix, welcome to Broncos country at 12. Let's ride, buddy.
How do you like those new unis, Bo? First question.
Hold on. I will say the throwbacks, the Broncos throwbacks.
I'm not talking about the ones they're going to wear occasionally. Those
They're
should
so
be
good.
Those should be the straight line unis. I think everybody agrees. The Broncos just punted here, and they really didn't need to because now they are either UTSA or UVA. I don't care which.
They've straight up ripped off Virginia. Like Virginia should take them to court.
UTSA fans say the same thing. And I get it. Like, I understand. But the bottom line is we shouldn't even be having that discussion. They should be wearing the throwbacks full time, have the alternates be some version of a darker uni of their Super Bowl heyday, right? Have them do like a predominantly dark blue version of their, Super Bowl.
I just think the new Broncos jerseys are like flavorless Triscuits. They're bland and nobody wants them.
One of my favorite, our buddy, Taylor Kyles, said, please tell me when the Nike sponsorship is up. Please tell me it's soon. Please tell me it's soon. Because, boy, they seem to have thrown out a bunch of flavorless Triscuits.
But every single retro jersey has been amazing, which I think hammers home the point that, like, designers in the 90s were fucking cooking. Like, every retro jersey is so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bo Nix to the Broncos. Why do I have Bo Nix to the Broncos and not to the Vikings? For one, I think Bo can actually like tolerate Sean Payton's shit. For one,
that is my number one right there.
He's older. He's very mature. Very coachable. Obviously,
Dad was a player.
He's got a lot of talent. Like people don't give him credit for like the physical talent that he has. Like we're standing on the field with him at the combine, and you look at his thighs. Like that dude never skips leg day, and he's really explosive.
61 collegiate starts.
Yeah,
he's a grown ass man, and people are gonna look. I understand the breakout age and overall age and second contract age. I get that. My argument about that is if you get to the second contract and you're worried about having a year less in the second contract, you won. Like if you're seriously consider signing that guy for big money in a second contract,
then you made the right pick.
You hit. Like, what are we arguing about here? So that one's always funny to me. But Nix is like, you can't have it both ways. If you're gonna ding him for being a grown ass man, he's also a grown ass man. Like he is a big,
literally, he's married.
He's a big, thick player that has a strong arm. Is it the strongest arm? No, but somehow Troy Franklin came up with 1,300 yards this year. Like, yes, I understand the average depth of target for Bo Nix was lower, but like when you see him throw the deep ball, which they didn't let him do all that often, when he did, it was fine.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you lower that curtain before I
don't know
what's third degree burns from the sun
worth here?
To you? You want another pour?
Maybe.
Right.
Probably not before this is over, but
there you go. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna lower the blast shields here because it's hit the witching hour on Arrakis, and you are getting burned to a crisp.
I look at Bo Nix, and the one hang up is obviously okay. The average depth of target was really low. The offense was very lateral in terms of how they ran things. A lot of screens.
Shades of Herbert, though. Come on.
And that's the thing is I'm trying not to get got by that again.
If you watch him throw the ball, so we saw him on the field. Well, you saw him on the field at the combine. I was not there for that, but I went to his pro day at Oregon. And look, pro days are arranged to make quarterbacks look good. 100%. Not arguing that in the slightest. but they had him moving and throwing throws that quarterbacks shouldn't throw, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like throwing back across your body, which is a big no-no, right? That's an interception waiting
He
to
did that
happen.
in game, though, and actually hit it for a touchdown.
I understand. But they had him doing that because it's a difficult throw physically to be moving your momentum one way, to crank your body around the other way and throw back across the field with any kind of velocity or accuracy. Those throws look easy to him. He has a lot of like power in that core. He is, again, a big, solid dude, and he is the complete opposite. He is the antithesis of JJ McCarthy. Everybody says JJ is all about potential and not production. Like, if there's not a throw in the Bo Nix film that you can find, it doesn't exist. 61 collegiate starts. Every throw you can see from pretty much every offense is in there. You just need to go look and find it. So there's not any like, well, I don't know if he can do it or not, because it's all in there. Now, you can talk about potential, you can talk about ceiling, you can talk about age if you really want to. But I think Nix is underrated. This is early for him. But again, what else are the Broncos going to do? Because I'm not going to make that joke.
We had a good question to kind of piggyback. What separates McCarthy from Nix? For me, it's the fact that we know McCarthy is not all the way through his development curve.
Yes.
And so it's the classic, like,
potential.
You want a boat or you want what's in the box? It's like,
could be a boat.
Could be a boat in the box.
Yeah.
It's like, but like a better boat,
Yeah.
So that's my
It's a
mentality.
microcosm of the same discussion we had about Jayden Daniels and Drake May.
Yes.
That you think Jayden is farther along, and he is, because his development came earlier. It came in his last year at LSU. And, May has hopefully that year in him in the pros. Tougher to do against a higher level of competition, but not saying he can't reach it. It's a lower tier version of the same argument, right? Bo Nix is, for the most part, done developing. Can he get better? Sure, he can get better. Is he going to get a lot stronger? I don't think so. Like some guys, notably Drew Brees, a former Peyton protege, right, got stronger when they came into the league, for sure. I don't think Bo Nix is going to get a lot stronger. He's already there. He's a strong dude.
Have you noticed a certain player has not gone off the board yet?
I've noticed many players haven't gone off the board yet, but that's like mock draft fatigue at this point.
So chat has been hounding me over and over and over again on most picks.
I'm shocked
about Malik Nabers.
Yeah.
When is Malik Nabers going to go? Why hasn't Malik Nabers gone yet? Maybe a better question.
Better question.
Well, wait no longer. Malik Nabers, you're going to play with Devontae Adams, buddy. I could very easily see Malik going higher than this. I could see him going as high as 6, the Giants.
Yes.
Would totally understand it.
Yep.
I don't have him in the same tier as the top 2 receivers. I have him in the tier below, along with A.D. Mitchell. So my grade on him differs from a lot of other people, but I could see him going that high.
Mm-hmm.
For me, he's not an X receiver.
He's not.
Not even sure he's a Z.
I think he is a hybrid slot Z, and
emphasis on the slot part.
Well, I went back and forth. I'm not going to lean, and this is the same argument we just made for Oregon, right? I'm not going to lean too much on his college usage and say that's all he can do, because obviously we know he can run the slot fade. Malik Nabers can run the slot fade. Spoiler alert for anybody that didn't watch LSU tape. But Derek Klassen and I went back and forth about this particular thing today, because he said on a podcast, I think he's got this mix of skills that if you want to make use of all of them, you do have to move him between those 2 positions. And I was like, because we'd just done our draft rankings. I sent it off to him and I was like, he's hybrid slot Z, you say. And right after his name is S and Z, right? Slot and Z. Because I believe the same thing. We know he is a killer from the slot, but he could run Z reps as well. Is he the guy that when you were talking about the Cardinals earlier, that you want to put out there on an island, 3rd and 6, got to have a press coverage?
No.
Like, he's not going to have the same success as the 2 guys ahead of him, at least in my rankings. I have him in the same tier, in the top tier, but he is a different type of player. He is the most explosive wide receiver in this draft, I believe. He is a dog when he's catching it and with the ball in his hands. Not that the other guys aren't, but he's a different type. And honestly, he goes to the Raiders, man. Like, that is Al Davis reaching up from the grave and going,
"Oh no, this is Al Davis's dream player."
Yeah,
because he's fast, but he's also actually
really
good.
Really,
he's actually good. Like, this is what was it? Darius Hayward Bay, right? Back in the day, they took like 8th overall, something like that.
How dare you?
No, but like, imagine if Darius Hayward-Bay was like good at football. That's
I'm
Malik
just going to
Nabers.
imagine Malik Nabers being who he is. I'm just going to start there. Very complete player. I would not put those two players in the same frame. It would be fascinating. Not a player, obviously, he doesn't last this long in most mock drafts. Not a player I've seen mock to the Raiders. It'd be a lot of fun, especially with AP as his head coach. Like, I think that would be a serious mesh.
I also think Devontae would be a great mentor for him.
Oh, 100%.
And he needs a mentor. He really does.
Yes.
Especially in terms of learning how to break press coverage. Because if you watch the Florida State game, maybe I'm weighing that game too heavily, but like that was the Florida State game and the Alabama games were the two games where Malik went up against legit NFL starting press corners. All of them shoved him into a locker when he was lined up outside.
Yeah.
He did really well in the slot.
You got to move him.
But you got to move him. You got to put him inside because NFL press corners, they handled him. They forced him into the sideline, and when you restricted that space, he really had struggles there. So, and even if you're looking at his production totals, he's way more productive from the slot than outside, like significantly more productive. Because he's got space to work with. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and break press coverage. It's not that he doesn't have the physical tools to. He just wasn't coached to.
Yeah, running 7 from the slot is his happy place.
Yeah, and BTJ had a similar issue. Like just whoever the LSU receiver coach is, his guys when they're on must outside release goes, they couldn't do it.
They didn't take the space. Yeah.
So again, I see him as a slot guy, a very, 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 very good slot guy.
Yeah,
but that's where I project him. And you got Devontae playing outside, so it fits perfect.
Yeah.
All right, 14. If the Saints don't take a tackle,
it's like mean to the Falcons with the pass rusher. You're gonna go beat them about the ears.
Saints fans will burn the stadium to the ground if they don't take Olu Fashanu here. So that's who I'm taking because A, Olu's a great player.
Yes.
And B, they kind of have to. Like if you're looking at their tackle situation, good Lord, the miss on Trevor Penning has ruined them. Like they gave up a lot for him, and it didn't work out. It's not that he turned into an average starter. He can't get on the field.
Well, the other problem is that Ramczyk might not be on the field because of injury, and if that happens, like we're talking about a like all hands
5-alarm fire.
Yeah.
Like they might take 2 tackles in this draft. Because they kind of have to.
I would say they almost certainly would, whether one's up high and one's in the middle or one's up high and one's down low. One's got to be up high. So taking Olu Fashanu here, like best pass protecting left tackle in this draft, even better than Joel. Not as good as a run blocker, still has more development. But if you're talking about a pure, like, aerial space denier on the left-hand side to say, whatever your super fast, bendy pass rusher is, I'm going to put a counter up that'll work. Like Fashanu is the countermeasure to that type of rusher. And that will give whoever's playing quarterback for the Saints a little bit more breathing room.
Did struggle with power a little bit in the Ohio State game.
True.
JT got him like 4 times. But I
luckily
still,
for him, JT's back in college.
yes, he didn't come out. But I still think that it's not necessarily lacks the physical talent to handle power. It's just
and this is a really good point to make about all these players. All these players have things to improve. None of them are perfect prospects.
Yeah.
Not Caleb, not on down. And Caleb's the first pick. So every single one of them has some piece that offensive or defensive coordinators that are going to oppose them are like, oh, guess what we're going to do? We're going to press Malik Nabers. Oh, guess what we're going to do? We're going to bull rush Olu Fashanu. Like, I get it, but that is the case with everybody. We're talking about the first round. I mean, forget it, farther on down. It's just more holes or more things to develop. So saying that a prospect wasn't particularly good against one thing is not necessarily a knock. It's a fact. They all have them.
Yeah. It's just a note. We got to give notes. All right, Colts at 15.
Ooh, can I guess?
Sure.
Corner.
Wrong.
Oh, stake through my heart. Okay, go ahead.
This is, and I was really trying to find if I could fit him in earlier than this, and I just couldn't.
Sure.
And this is also like the most chalky Colts pick ever because every Colts fan expects it. Brock Bowers.
Yeah, sure.
I don't actually hate their tight end room. I mean, you and I both like Jelani a lot coming out, but Brock is like, A, he's better, but B, he's just a different kind of player. And there's nothing stopping me from putting him on the field, even with the tight ends that are already on the roster. And he's just better anyway. But he's more of like that H-backy type. If we want Jelani to be the Y, Jelani could be the Y, because Brock, I'm not really putting him on the line of scrimmage anyway. He's a big slot / H-back. He's going to be, more like, talking player, not person, the Aaron Hernandez type. In terms of where I would put him.
That's your second curveball player comp.
But like in terms of skill set, like
I wouldn't have gone there. I think our buddy Dane Brugler said something really interesting on a podcast. And Dane, by the way, props to you, my man. A, you put out the beast, and you have been flogging it on podcasts ever since.
He's done like 10 shows in the last week.
He's been on with all of our friends. I'm like,
go to bed, Dane. God.
Anybody that you haven't done a podcast with, shout out to Dane Brugler, one of the best in the industry. He said something really interesting about Brock Bowers, and it's something I tried to talk about on our gems issue because I had him as one of my offensive gems, and I said people are getting hung up about tight end, and I sort of stumbled through an explanation. Dane said it in a very clear and concise fashion. He said, I'm no longer saying positional value. I'm saying impact value. Because
I like that.
People, it's the same thing in a different way, and it just cut right through. And I was like, yes, I want to speak like Dane when I get older. Because it was just so clear of like, you forget the tight end. You're getting a guy that has stats that are greater than many of the wide receivers in terms of what we consider the most impactful stats for wide receivers. He plays whatever he plays. This is what you're getting in terms of production, in terms of moving your offense, in terms of threatening a defense from multiple roles. Forget that he has TE in front of his name. He is one of the rare movers as an athlete in this draft, and he can change a game on offense for you. So the Colts, quote unquote, waiting until their natural pick in the middle of the first round and getting a talent at the level of Brock Bowers, it's a win for Indianapolis.
It's just one of those, you're not going to go broke taking a profit. Just take good players when they're there.
Yeah, pick up the dollar off the ground that other people dropped.
All right, pick 16, Seahawks. God, this one was hard.
This
was the hardest pick in the whole first round.
Seahawks, throughout this entire cycle, what they've said, what people have said about them, what's been said about them by other teams, and it's fascinating. This is one of the most sort of maelstrom picks in the whole first round.
I guarantee you'll never guess it either.
I won't, and I probably won't guess the real one either because John is John.
I really thought about doing Quinyon just because it's
just
fun. Just because it's fun.
And he fits with Mike.
And it's just fun things, and I like fun things. I really thought about doing it. But ultimately, I was like, okay, I'm going to restrain myself from doing the fun thing. I'm going to do the responsible thing.
First time ever?
And I went and looked at their depth chart. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
We're looking at the offensive line.
Yeah.
They were in a world of hurt last year because they took some injuries at tackle.
And Abe might not be healthy.
That's the thing. He just had knee surgery a few months ago now, and they're kind of waffling on availability.
He and
for the
Ramczyk
season.
are the two presumptive starter right tackles that are not so sure you should be presuming.
Yeah, and that sucks because Abe's really talented, and
I want Abe back on the field. I like him as a person. I like him as a player.
So I was looking at that, and I was like, all right, you got Charles Cross, who again also got hurt last year, but he's going to be back. You got Laken Tomlinson at guard. You got Olu at center. You got Anthony Bradford at guard. You got Abe Lucas, maybe possibly at right tackle. They also brought in George Fant to kind of
in case
buoy that if we need it.
Yep.
And so I know on paper, in theory, the offensive line is set, but I'm not trusting it.
No.
And I kind of wanted to add one more piece there.
You wanting to add one more offensive line piece?
I am nothing if not predictable.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, but who do I bring in? Like, am I competing at tackle? Am I competing at guard? Am I competing at center? The answer is yes.
Oh.
To all of them.
Barton.
Yep. Graham Barton.
Nice.
Because when in doubt, he can play all 5 spots. And so I don't know where he's going to play, but he's going to play.
He can, and I think this has been overemphasized with Barton. Yes, he was a left tackle throughout his college career. Graham Barton is an interior player and will be a very good
probably.
I think more than probably. I don't think his future is at tackle in the NFL. I do think he will be a very high level interior player. Most folks agree that he's going to be a high level center fairly early in his career. I really, I'm a big fan of Olu. But boy, I love those players in this draft. Barton's one of them. Mason McCormick is another. Dominic Pooney is another. There are multiple guys in this draft that can give you that sort of carte blanche coverage for the inside of your offensive line. And it's just, like you said, yes.
I don't know if Seahawks fans are going to like it or not.
No, they typically don't like a lot of things.
But it's also a very John Schneider type pick, in the sense that it's not the one you expect.
It would be off chalk for sure.
If the Seahawks do anything, it's whatever is not chalky. So
yeah,
it's actually more realistic than you think.
It's a fascinating pick, and I love the reasoning. And if anything, I'll take just about anything as long as folks can justify it.
Jags fans are going wild in chat because Quinyon Mitchell is available.
He's sitting there.
Jags fans want Quinyon real bad.
Are you going to make them happy?
I'm a Texans fan. Fuck no.
Oh, there's that.
But I am going to ruin my own life a little bit. So,
well, either way, it's like me with Packers picks because lots of folks that I like end up playing in green and gold.
But I'm not giving them what they want. I'm not giving you Quinyon Mitchell. Okay. But I'm still giving you a really,
but
really,
you took
really
Rome
good
from
player.
me.
I'm taking AD Mitchell from myself. Right? Because this is a guy where if he slipped far enough.
Jags fans, I'm just going to apologize now.
I know you're not an AD Mitchell guy though, so you're not going to be super hyped about this.
No.
For me, this breaks my heart because I really wanted AD Mitchell in Houston. And to give him to Jacksonville hurts me a little bit.
Sure.
So we're all just kind of wallowing in misery now.
We're all just suffering together.
But I really love AD Mitchell. I have him in the same tier as Malik Nabers. Okay, that's how high my grade is on AD Mitchell.
I know. You made a whole video about him.
And if I'm looking at the Jags receiving core, I understand they lost out on Calvin Ridley when they thought they were going to be able to retain him, and then they couldn't retain him. So now they're staring down the barrel of Gabe Davis being a starting outside receiver for them. Yep. Christian Kirk obviously being Mr. Reliable in the slot. You also got Zay Jones. You got Dev Duve. Parker Washington, just like the assembly of slot receivers, basically, and Gabe Davis. They still need a number one outside. And I think Quinyon fits. I think Quinyon's talented enough to be picked there, but I am not going into a very consequential year for Trevor Lawrence's development with Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk being my top two targets.
Sure.
I'm not doing it. I refuse. This is a quarterback who we believe in. We think that Trevor can be the guy. We're about to give him a bag. We need to give him weapons to throw to. And if our secondary suffers because we don't take Quinyon Mitchell, fine. But as you and I were talking about, there's a billion corners on day two. There's a fucking billion of them. There are so many.
Yep.
So many.
Throw a stick.
So I'm looking at AD Mitchell and like Kyrie Jackson as your package. And I like that a hell of a lot better than Quinyon and God, who would be there? Malachi Corley, I guess, which doesn't really solve our problem of needing a number one.
I mean, you're going to, because you haven't picked a lot of receivers. So that's one thing. And you're not having to do the second round, which gets you off the hook. But I'm not sure who I dislike more right now, you or Trent Baalke. And that's a crazy thing.
Like, don't you dare put me in the same conversation.
I'm saying that is a very strange thing to be considering, because if I just do the thing we talked with DJ about, and I say, okay, I have two players here. Let's just say it's AD Mitchell. For me, it's not. Let's just say it is for you. Or, and Quinyon. I'm like, Quinyon all day long. Like, higher grade, better player. I think more perseverance in the league. Like, I would take Quinyon in a heartbeat here and take whichever receiver we're going to show up with in the second round again, which in this particular scenario, you haven't picked that many. You picked a lot.
Oh,
of
they're gonna
offensive
go.
linemen.
They're
gonna go. But like maybe you get Xavier Legette, and if you tell me I get Quinyon and Xavier,
Spoiler alert.
Not
Legette
getting-
ain't making it to the second
you're
round,
not
guys.
making Xavier Legette. Okay, Ricky Pearsall. Like, you know, that I'm not the biggest AD guy, but I'm a huge Quinyon guy. It's more about that.
Yeah.
And their need at corner is dire. And you get, in my mind, the first corner off the board at their pick. It's rare in a draft. And look, this is going to be, you know, we asked Mina what her slogan was for this draft, and she said, be offensive, right? Meaning lots of offensive players coming off the board before many defensive players. But at some point, you just got to go value, like, that guy's a dog. We need somebody in his spot. He's the best one. Like, he's coming off the board.
Would it shock you that I have equivalent grades on AD and Quinyon? I know that makes you like
I'm
just
queasy.
have a visceral reaction.
I'm queasy at that point. Yeah, that's not great. Quinyon, one of my favorite players in this draft. AD, a guy that I want to like for every possible reason, and I just can't
Get there.
I can't do it.
Where do you have him relative to like Keon?
He's lower.
Lad.
Lower. A little bit lower than Lad, but not much.
Legette.
Legette's higher, not higher than Keon, but higher than Lad.
Malik. Washington. for those who
One spot above Lad, but not as high as the other two.
So, but in that general ballpark.
Yeah.
So you have him, if you think he'd be like a second round pick, probably for you.
Who, AD?
AD.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
No, probably not.
All right, we might have to do a whiskey bet on that one.
You know, again, this is what I do versus, and I look to all the Texas fans out there right now who are throwing tomatoes at their screens. Like, I want
Bengal's about to come over.
Yeah,
and
he's
just
about to like,
deck
I'm
you.
gonna roll up. I get it, and I hope that AD succeeds because again, there is nothing he doesn't have, but I cannot get over it in my head. And I went back to past drafts and I looked at like guys that we were absolutely sure were going to be ringers as wide receivers. There's always a few,
Yeah.
right? You got to pick some. So who are you picking in this draft? And for some reason or another, I can't get off AD as that guy. Now, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he takes his motivation and says, not that he needs it, and goes out and just balls out. Look, if he ends up with Patrick Mahomes, all bets are off. I'm an idiot.
Dude,
like-
I could go play for the Chiefs right now and put up 600 yards.
Like, he is a specimen.
I can't. I just want to clarify that.
At outside wide receiver. I do not hate Mitchell. I just can't put him up as high as guys like you and other guys. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's one of the things about draft season. And the NFL will tell us who's right. It's the ultimate meritocracy that way.
All right, pick 18. Now that Jags fans are thoroughly annoyed, let's annoy them even more.
Jags fans are not the ones you want annoyed at you, by the way.
No, man, that's a
Okay, by the way, I picked Quinyon. Just saying.
you just throw me under the bus.
I'm just
Kill him.
I'm just faster than the bear at this point.
Gonna wake up
right?
with a gator in my bed.
I'm just faster than the bear.
All right, 18 Bengals. This is a pick that a lot of Jags fans also want that they're not going to get. Byron Murphy, the other great Texas prospect who I have a very high grade on. I think everybody has a high grade on Byron at this point. Like,
He's a good player.
he's either DT1 or DT2 for everybody.
Yeah.
Just an incredible physical profile.
Yeah,
I get he's shorter, but I feel like people kind of realize now that like short DT, like it's okay to be a short DT as long as you're explosive.
As long as you're as effective as Byron is,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Like height is not a requirement for DT. It wasn't when John Randall played. It wasn't when Aaron Donald played. I can't believe I'm using that in the past tense now. Justin Madubuike, like it doesn't matter what your size is if you are extremely explosive and fluid and just a hell of a pass rusher who also happens to be like pretty stumpy against the run too. Like he played 2I a lot at 6 foot 290. Was he 295? Is that what he was?
He's right in there.
Ballpark,
He's
right?
just a tick under 300.
He wasn't a huge guy, but they still put him at 2I and he kicked ass against the run there too. So
Thing is, on film, if you watch Murphy, there's no way you think he's the size he is. And then you go back to
I
what
was
he measured
genuinely
at.
surprised.
You go back to what he measured at, and you're like, no.
He walked by because we were down in the field at the combine when they were doing like their like their vertical jumps and broad jumps, and he walked by us, 5 feet away, and I was like, "Is my eye line higher than what?" I had like an existential crisis right there. I was like, and I was looking up the measurements because I didn't have measurements for him at that time, and I was like 6'00". The fuck? Like I thought he was like 6'2".
He's literally shorter than both of us.
Yeah, no, but he's built, dude. He is so rocked up.
Well, we're not gonna argue that point.
Yeah. But he's awesome. I love Byron.
I don't care what size he is. He plays big on the field.
All right, 19 Rams. This one I'm actually fascinated to get your reaction to.
Sure.
Because everybody split.
Did you see
on
their
him.
press conference today?
No. What happened?
McVay and Snead went completely unhinged. They had a field day. They're like, hey, it's smoke season. We're gonna poke people. Let's go. And just like went off on tangents. It was great. Like Jordan Rodriguez, our buddy Jordan, was like, I'll come out with comments about this. I need a cigarette first. Like that was peak unhinged McVay and Snead.
You spend one night in a Hermosa Beach draft house and look what happens to you. By the way, Chad, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of
their 9,000 square feet or something. It's crazy.
I don't know what they spend on these draft houses every year.
We have a nice place for the draft. This is a very nice place. We are not saying this is not a nice place. The Rams went out and partnered with Zillow, of all people, and got like an 8,000 or 9,000 square foot beach house for their draft. So, okay, fine. Advantage Rams, you win.
Yeah, if only we all had multi-billionaires to fund our houses.
Yeah, billions would be nice.
So Rams on the clock. Again, this is a player a lot of people are very split on because we just didn't get to see him play that much. But in the 126, I think it is.
Oh, no.
Total
really?
pass block reps.
Okay.
That were not RPO, not play action. I'm talking straight drop back pass block reps. In the last 2 years, we have like 126 of them. In those reps, Amarius Mims was amazing. He was amazing. I fully understand the sample size is very low. People are scared off by that. But I just can't ignore what my eyes saw, which is a freakishly talented, very developed tackle considering his lack of playing time, who has every tool, and I mean every tool you could want. As far as physical profiles go at any position in this class, he's up there amongst the top.
Yeah.
I believe in the talent, and I believe that the Rams are just going to call up Big Wit and say, come down, work with this kid, get him ready. Because he'll do it. He'll absolutely do it.
Of course.
I think Amarius Mims, specifically with the Rams,
it's a very Snead pick.
Is a success. Holy shit, Brett. Success story. 3 whiskeys in. That's what.
How do you think his statistics are?
Oh, don't even. Fucking start. All right.
Me. Anyways, Amarius Mims. Little known fact, and I'm just gonna out him here. Sorry, Brad. Our buddy Brad Spielberger called me up and said, hey, I want to watch tape with you and Brett this season. I said, well, he said, I'll fly to LA. I said, you don't need to fly to LA. Like, we can do it over Zoom or whatever. So we started a little like Thursday film club, and it turned into like Thursday tackle club because we had to settle on a position. And I said, what do you want to watch? And he said, tackles. And Amarius Mims was the first guy we watched. And 3 plays in, I was like, hold up. Okay. I don't know how much tackle play you've watched, but like, we need to go back because he just did a thing that you don't see. Like, he warped from here to here. And again, much like we were just talking about Byron Murphy's size and going back to the sheets and going, how he's only 6 foot. Like, you go back to he's like, how tall? He weighs how much?
Yeah.
And he just moved like what essentially is a gap and a half in a step. Like, he literally took 1 step in balance over his feet, not even like a true kick step, right? He just warped to the left.
But he's just so big
and you're
so
like,
explosive.
Guys that big shouldn't move that fast and land with that balance. Because when he landed, he was like, hi, I'm here, and I'm whatever I am, 6'7", 6'8", and
330.
330, and you're going nowhere because my arms are pretty long too. And I just literally, and I'm sure the defensive player was like, what was that? Like, how did that happen? That's the kind of talent you're looking at. So even though he hasn't played a ton of snaps, he's very young as a player, he still has a lot of polish to go. You see individual reps like that where you're like, that might be the most explosive slide, kick step, whatever you want to, that I saw all draft season from anyone. And there are great tackles in this class. I don't know that any of them can do that. He can.
I want to answer a question here from Curie who said, "Hey, Brett, where's the jersey?" For those who don't know, he got the Andre Johnson Colts jersey.
I did. I saw it.
I am wearing that one time all year, and it's when we do the Colts preview episode.
Okay.
The season preview episode over on the Bootleg Football podcast channel. If you guys don't know that, by the way, we do like a 32 episode series where we break down every single team individually, what they did in the offseason, previewing what they're going to do this year. That starts June?
In June-ish. It's bootleg summer sleepaway camp, for lack of a better
Quite literally.
description.
Going to go get a house up on the Seattle Sound, maybe the Oregon coast. I don't know. We'll see.
Who knows? We'll figure it out. As long as they have internet.
Just talk football for, I don't know, 4 months or whatever it is. But yes, I'm wearing the Colts jersey for that episode and that episode only.
Time. Oh,
and
that
it.
was devious. I did see it.
One note, by the way, because Underdog is funding all this for this year, including
gestures at everything.
Literally all of it.
Yep.
For our draft live stream this year. I do want to note, if you're a Florida resident, by the way.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure we have
just
at least
today
a couple Floridians.
Well, I mean, Jacksonville.
Well, Jacksonville doesn't like me. I kind of waited until they left the stream in anger before I did this.
Well, that's not great timing.
But they just launched a new Champions game in Florida where it's a peer-to-peer game. So just because of how Florida law works, it's a little bit different in Florida, but it's peer-to-peer in Florida.
Many things are different in Florida.
So if you already have an Underdog account, they're actually kind of offering a deposit bonus where anything up to $500, they do a 20% match. If you already have an existing account in Florida, they don't do that for existing accounts pretty much ever. They always have new depositor specials. This is for people that already have Florida accounts and want to be able to play on Champions. So they'll do a 20% match. So if you put in 100, you get 20. If you put in 500, you get 100. If you're new as a depositor in Florida, you can still get that $100 deposit match as well. And for today, they're kind of doing a whole week-long special thing. But for today, you get to pick a discount for one of 4 days. So we got Randy Arizona. The fuck?
You got to read that after 3 whiskeys?
Chat, I'm struggling here. Randy Arozarena. There we go. Jazz Chisholm, Sam Reinhart, and Paolo Banchero. Clearly, I'm up
Jazz
on
Chisholm.
Florida sports.
Yeah, Jazz Chisholm. Come on.
Anyway, thank you, Underdog, for sponsoring this stream and our entire draft coverage. So make sure to come by while we probably don't drink as much for the sake of our bodies.
No, but definitely not.
But we will be talking about every single pick in the draft for all 3 days. A Rose Arena. There we go. Thank you, chat, for helping me out with that.
I feel like we need to get some basketball commentator and bring them on and give them Rook's name. And be
Ruka Rororo.
It's a Rororo. I love that. It's the best. We'll have a whole thing on draft pronunciation throughout the draft. But
if you are interested in Underdog, by the way, you can find that link in the description below. Use promo code BOOTLEG for that deposit match. All right. Steelers. They've been zeroed in on Amarius Mims for
now they got pipped
for months.
Yeah, unless Snead's like,
but there's another tackle on the board that's available.
What? You're going to pick O-line?
Shocker.
Weird.
J.C. Latham.
Oh,
you are a Pittsburgh Steeler. Also, in this scenario, I'm moving Broderick to left. Like, finally, full-time, forever.
Yeah.
He is left. J.C. Latham's right.
Forever.
We rock and roll with that.
Yeah.
And Steelers finally get a tackle tandem that is good for the first time in how long?
I was going to say, but upon this rock, we build our church, right? J.C. Latham is that rock. Like, okay, so we don't have to worry about right tackle for 7 or 8 years. Like, we're good.
And if you're going to bench him, by the way, I'm going to let you have that conversation because I am not giving him bad news ever.
Yeah, no, literally Latham was, strangely enough, the second tackle that Brad and I watched the next week. I was like, okay, contrasting styles. But again, extremely strong, really wide frame. And once he gets his hands on you, he is one of the, I'll coin the term, clampiest tackles in this draft. Like one hand is enough. Like if he gets a good solid hand on you, you're done. You're not. He could just literally put his other hand behind his back and steer you around and be like, "Nope, you're good. I got him, coach."
He's just incredibly strong.
Yeah,
so strong. He's not the best mover, but,
no, but
at his frame, I don't expect him to be.
But the crazy thing is, so his movement gets him in bad spots, and then his strength bails him out. Right? At some point, they have to come back towards him generally, and he just goes, and you're like, well, you lost on the steps, but you won just because you're an absolute beast.
He's like the mountain in Game of Thrones, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna get around him, you're gonna dance around him.
You cut me several times,
but dude, the second you get comfortable, yes, quite literally,
done.
Yes, you're fucked.
Yeah,
so
love
JC
awesome. Latham. Think he could go much earlier than this pick. Just
I
so
wouldn't be surprised, dude. You could tell me Saints.
You could tell me Chargers
at 5.
Yep. If they don't take, I mean, you've got them taking wide receivers, so that's a different thing. You could tell me Latham at 5, and I would be like, well,
with Alt on the board, or or in this scenario,
no,
Arizona.
I mean, I believe that Alt would still be on the board in that scenario.
I mean, if there's any
Slater,
any Greg Roman type tackles,
right? But Slater is your left, right? That's the other thing that people don't talk about is like Alt. Well, Alt, are you putting Alt at right? Are you putting Slater back to right? Like, what are you doing there? If you have Rashawn Slater and you believe he's a great left, and we do, there is not a more like custom made right tackle for the Chargers in the current iteration than Latham.
If you want to throw the ball 15 times a game, JC Latham's your guy. Again, I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just saying if that's what you want.
It's what I would do. I'm saying if that happened, although it would be surprising, absolutely, I would not be like, oh, I hate this, it's terrible. I'd be like, in certain ways, this makes sense.
Pick 21, Dolphins. Let's see which offensive lineman I'm going to take this time. Like I said, there's going to be like 14 that go off the board here.
And how many have you taken? Like 12? Anyways, go ahead.
A lot. So I'm looking on the interior here. Tackle's starting to thin out a little bit finally. I'm looking on the interior. There's a healthy debate. JPJ, Zach Frazier, any of the top tackles that are going to convert to guards. Like who's the interior guy that fits the Dolphins best?
Yeah.
For me, Zach Frazier, West Virginia.
Interesting.
Be their starting center. I think he's a great fit for them personally.
Interesting. Talk to me about that, because I would have thought, if I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I would have said JPJ.
Well, why is that?
Movement, for sure. JPJ is a better mover outside than Zach is.
Like displacement for me, because so it's so interesting when we talk about, like, they don't run wide zone 60% of the time, but like they run a lot of wide zone in Miami, because of course they do.
Sure.
And one thing that I think gets underrated about zone centers, it's not just can you get to the front side if you're reaching a shade or if you're reaching a 2-eye.
Sure.
Sometimes reaching a 3 if you're getting a little help from the guard.
Get a little help from friends.
It's not just about, can you get there? It's, can you get there and deliver knockback? Because
Zach can do that.
If you're getting there and they're still, because they're still closing you off and closing the hole with your body, your movement skill doesn't matter as much if you're soft on arrival.
Yeah, if you can't deliver impact. I'm with you there. And Zach, I think, can deliver similar impact. What he cannot do, which is the other percentage of the time, whatever percentage of the time that is when they get the center on the outside. Like, JPJ is the best center in this draft at movement skills outside and hitting targets once he gets there. Like, there is nothing he loves better than burying some poor, helpless defensive back, like, as hard as he can. And he's really good at it. And it's crazy that at almost 330 pounds, he can hit them regularly. Like, he has that agility and speed.
Oh, he's a freak. Yeah.
That's a crazy thing. So I would have said that would have been my initial fit. Look, I'm never going to say no to Zach Frazier, one of my favorite players in this entire draft. It's an interesting justification. I understand it.
He's so good at
You can stop there.
He is.
He's
good.
just so
He's
good.
so good.
Yeah.
But it's the vertical displacement you get, which is so important in the zone run game because
He'll make you a hole.
Well, you need vertical displacement to prevent penetration. Like you need to at least have. I know phrasing, but you need that vertical displacement so that you can kind of almost extend the amount of time that the running back can string it out before they have to cut back.
Sure.
Even if you're just straight flat down the line, you're not getting any displacement. They're not creating a dent. Even if it's just straight flat, it's still not ideal for the running back. Like you need a little bit of knockback.
Yep.
So the running back can A, have a little bit more favorable angle, and B, so they don't have to cut back early because early cutbacks are the enemy of zone run games.
Sure.
So that's kind of why I favor Frazier. I think he's really good knockback. I think he's really strong. And it's less about winning front side on reach blocks for me and more so about, can I get the nose tackle off the line of scrimmage by 1.5 yards, whether he's front side or not.
Yeah. And look, Frazier's a great center. He's technically proficient. He's very strong, incredibly strong hands. Wrestling background, big surprise. There's a great center in this draft, and he has a wrestling background.
Shocker.
I know. So I'm never, like I said, gonna say very experienced, has a ton of reps at center. He's not a conversion project. Like he's been playing center at a high level. Love Zach Frazier. I think Dolphins fans would love him very quickly as well too.
All right, next pick here. Get back to my banners. Eagles are up.
Ooh,
Howie. I don't know if Jags fans came back yet, but I'm about to piss them off even more.
Oh, Howie.
Quinyon Mitchell, come on down.
Yeah, I saw him compared to Darius Slay as a pro comp the other day, and I was like,
ooh.
And I was like, dude,
I don't hate that.
No, I was like, as a full healthy, not last year's Darius Slay, but
young
prime Darius Slay. Like, I think that's actually a very good comp. I'm not a fan of comps. For those of you not familiar with my work, that one I was like, yep, I can see it. And now you pick him for the Eagles, and I'm like, well, that all lines up.
Again, he's just so good,
and they need him.
And they need him so bad. And like Quinyon would have started on that team last year.
But you're literally talking about the first corner off the board, right?
Yeah, first corner at 22.
Oh man, see, that's how you're doing backflips, and I don't know how athletic he is at this point, but like he would be doing backflips.
He would be attempting to do backflips. I don't know if he'd stick it.
Did I tell you I walked by him at the combine?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was just walking through the media center. This is the kind of thing that happens at the combine. This is not name dropping. This just happens all the time. And I walked by and I was like, and again, your vision kind of gets pulled and your brain goes, is that? And this is the game you play at the combine all the time. Is that? And about 9 times out of 10, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And walked by, Howie is much shorter than I thought he was. And I was like, oh, and my brain did this little dance. Is that Howie Roseman? And I was like, yes, it is Howie Roseman. And I was like, who's the tall guy behind him? Oh, that's Nick Sirianni.
Is Nick Sirianni tall?
He's much taller than Howie. He's taller than me too. But maybe he's your height, 6'3"-ish. But Howie is quite a bit shorter and slight. And I was like, oh, that's the whole Eagles brain trust. But your brain's doing this 10 feet past them as you go, bleh, because it's the combine and that happens all the time. So I hope Howie can do a backflip. But if he gets Quinyon Mitchell, he's going to learn how.
I walked by Mike Vrabel at a restaurant one time. I was like, holy shit. If there was ever, like a battle royale between all the coaches.
Him and Dan.
Yeah. Him and Dan. I'm putting money on all of
the
them.
Top card. Yeah. Or maybe that's a tag team.
He's massive, dude.
Yeah. And he's filled out. He's got that old man strength now. Like And you wonder why like Vrabel wants to build a team in his image that is like tough, big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Let me brighten up this camera a little bit. Now the sun's going down.
We have white balance issues.
There we go. All right. Let's go 100 frames. There we go. That's the thing with playing with
natural light.
Dynamic natural light. All right. Oh yeah, it looks better.
And we're back.
Okay, pick 23. Vikings back on the clock. I did kind of spoil this.
All of Philly still celebrating.
We have a corner that can actually play.
No, we have the corner.
Yeah.
Like in this draft. That's crazy.
So I alluded when I was on pick 11 that I'm going to risk one of these guys making it to 23.
Yeah.
And one of them did. This is early. I want to specify or clarify. No. Specify? Yeah, specify. No. Yes.
Both.
That's probably the right word.
Both?
Both. This is
You want to
early for me.
clarify.
Clarify. This is early for me for Michael Penix. I do not have a first round grade on him.
Quarterback tax, man.
Quarterback tax.
Yeah.
Plus, we're getting 5 years with the 5th-year option. We already made the trade. Like, we already gave up assets. Might as well fucking do it. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You need to take one. And they're very lucky that Penix is there.
Sure. In many ways. Where do you have Nix versus Penix in your rankings?
Penix a tier below.
Interesting.
Yeah. I have JJ and Nix in a tier, and then Penix in the tier below that by himself.
Okay. Because I have Penix right below Maye.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Where's Maye for you?
Third.
You have Penix QB4?
Yeah.
Holy shit. See, I'm telling you, we don't tell each other our rankings before we do this.
So that we can have this kind of fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's still early for me in terms of overall rank, but I think Penix is wildly underrated. I think the narratives around, it's like the narratives around JJ being the stuff you don't necessarily want to hear. Like the first 5 things that somebody will say about JJ have nothing to do with what he's going to do on the football field. People will say it does, but it's like, oh, he's a great leader. He's a smart kid. And he's respectful and he's this and he's that. And he elevated the program. I'm like, say something about like how he throws it, right? Because they'll get to that. And he's good at that. This is not anti-JJ. But with Penix, it's like, well, injuries. And I'm like, dude, he hasn't been injured in 2 years. Like his last 2 seasons, he has been largely uninjured. Yeah, he got pummeled against Texas. I understand that. But like in terms of the injuries you're talking about, like he hasn't been.
Honestly,
injured.
I'm a little bit more worried about Daniels than I am about Penix when it comes to the injury thing.
I get it. But Daniels is bigger than you think too.
No, it's just about like
the style.
Daniels has zero ability to understand risk.
He needs to. Well, the funny thing is there's about 7 plays in Daniel's playbook that are all like him going full Wile E. Coyote and getting massacred, right? But there's 7 plays out of all the snaps he took, and people are like, well, you can't do that. And you're right. In the NFL, you can't because they'll end you. And John Beck spoke to that and said that, we talked about it. I was a little worried about the approach he took because he was like, oh, we just kind of laugh about it. And I was like, you got to do something more than laugh about it. Like have a sliding drill, whatever it is. But Penix, all the narratives that people say against Penix are like these figments for the most part. It takes a while before you get to, oh, well, functional football thing here is why Michael Penix isn't good, because you talk about accuracy, you talk about playing on time, you talk about seeing the field, you talk about absolute ability to spin it, his proficiency from the pocket, his ability to push the ball, which is the narrative against many other players, including Bo Nix, right? Oh, the ADOT's low. Like Michael Penix's ADOT is not low, right? And it's not just because he has Rome. Sure, that helps, but when you go back to the film, there's always that balance. Is it the quarterback or the wide receiver? It's pretty balanced in that case. They're helping each other at, I would say, an equal level. And that's knowing how much I like Rome as a football player, that is an extremely high compliment. But when you get to it, people are like, not Penix. And you're like, okay, why? Like, I'm fine with that, but why? And
I'll give you a why.
Okay.
I'll give you a why. So the reason why I have Nix over Penix, when I was watching, and it's not just the Michigan game, but the Michigan game did factor in quite a bit.
Sure.
But it's where I first noticed it because that was the second game I did. And then I kept an eye out for it in the other, and I ended up doing, I think, 7 or 8 games of Penix total.
Did you do 2023 or mix of 2022 and 2023?
Only 2023.
Okay. All right.
And maybe I can go back to 2022.
No, I'm just saying,
but
it's good to know where the base is.
When he had pressure, which wasn't very often behind that offensive line, when he had pressure, especially interior pressure, nobody else amongst the top 6, in my opinion, dropped their eyes into that pressure as much as Penix did. And it's when I say I don't like how he is under pressure, it's not because I don't think he's athletic enough to get out of it. He is, obviously, he's a good athlete. I'm talking about his reaction to pressure. I felt like he was the most panicked. I felt like his eyes completely left the field, and he was focusing more on the pressure itself. He was erratic. I felt his decision-making went in the tank. His production definitely went in the tank under pressure. And that was what was really kind of like, you know, if he goes to a place where they have an offensive line, which Minnesota does, they have a really good tackle tandem, and obviously they have receivers and everything like that. Okay, yeah, I'm worried less about it. But if he's going to a place that has a poor offensive line, especially a poor interior offensive line, I was really, really worried about it.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where
if we're figuring in landing spot, we're not just going off traits. Most quarterbacks will struggle with interior pressure. I don't care how good they are. Like, I think Caleb will struggle with interior pressure. In fact, we saw that last year at USC, so we know that that's absolutely a possibility, and we have a much higher opinion of him than Penix. If we're figuring in landing spot, yes, he is maybe more landing spot determinant than some others, but as we know, all are. If we're just talking about traits, I think the ranking's justified in terms of what he can do on a level playing field. Now, obviously, not all playing fields are level, but it's the same. Like, if you put JJ McCarthy in a spot, and you want him to develop the way you want him to develop, and he gets a lot of interior pressure because they just don't address the offensive line, or they have a lot of injury issues or whatever, he's not going to be great. He might be okay. He might survive. But
good thing I'm sending him to the Giants then, huh?
Yeah. Great. Come on, JMS is on the Giants. Let's go.
All right, Cowboys 24. A lot of Cowboys fans are going to be screaming for JPJ here.
Sure.
Fully understand it.
Yep.
Fully understand it. Would you be surprised
probably
to know that the only receiver on the Cowboys roster that is under contract in 2025 is Jalen Tolbert? Because I was.
Am I shocked? No, because they have made almost institutional policy of bleeding those guys off over the last 2 or 3 years.
They have 5 receivers that it's 2023 or 2024, and that's it.
Yeah,
including CD, which obviously they're going to sign.
Right,
CD.
But that's kind of been the thing, is they've made that decision, and it's like, okay, so we can't do Gallup, we can't do Cooper, we can't do, like, they had, if not the best wide receiving core in the NFL a few years ago, but they've made a very conscious decision that CD's their guy, and not wrongly, incredibly productive, one of the top receivers in the NFL, but that it's a purposeful decision at this point. So, who have you added to this core of wide receivers?
I'm not saying it's the smartest pick, but it is pretty fun.
That's the clip right there. I'm not saying it's the smartest pick.
Brian Thomas Jr.
I don't hate it at all.
If I was a Cowboys fan, I'd be really excited about it, just for the highlights. Like, because we know we're going to get some really good highlights. I don't hate it at all.
I actually went back. We did our wide receiver rankings this week. And as I do that, I typically, not every player, because I've got my write-ups done on all the players, but I go back because some of them were quite a while ago. It was 2.5 months ago since I watched that player. I went back specifically on Brian Thomas Jr. because of something DJ said on his pod with Bucky. They went back for the last 2 years and they looked at the top 3 wide receivers, and all of them were successes. And then the guys that faltered were the guys that got picked late in the first round, or even better success rates in the second round.
Interesting.
So those guys that get picked, like, well, we need a wide receiver and we're at pick 25. And I was like, God, it's Brian Thomas Jr. in this draft. Like, that's the guy that gets mocked in that range. And so I was like, okay, need to reaffirm my opinion on Brian Thomas Jr. again, regardless of landing spot, just on traits and whatever. Boy, I was happy to go back and watch his tape. I really believe
he's fun
as a player.
He's fun,
and he's versatile. He wins at a bunch of different levels. He's not as he might be more specific as a Z, certainly than Nabers is, but he backs that up. He is a very good number 2, like super high level number 2.
And he doesn't have to be the number 1 because CD's there. That's the good part about it.
No, I love it. I'm not upset at all. I'm gonna say that Brian Thomas Jr. can break that curse of the last couple of years of the guys in the 20s being that haven't really done a thing. I went back and I was like, if a guy's gonna do it, it's this guy.
Cooks is gone. Turpin, well, now that the kick return rule changed, Turpin's not really as I would say for the new style of what kick returns are. I don't know if it really fits.
He's less
Turpin,
useful. That's
you
more.
know,
That's more punts.
you kind of
Yeah.
want guys a little bit more sand in the pants for like the new. Honestly, you want running backs.
You want one-cut running backs.
You want one-cut running backs.
You know who you want?
You want Derrick Henry.
Well, you know who you want in this draft that you can get down late? And this was because I was doing running back rankings late last night.
Who?
Isaiah
Davis?
Yep.
Oh.
Like,
yeah.
he is, if you're just looking at the special teams value with the new kickoff rule, like Isaiah Davis is like
I could see that.
a couple slots higher than you thought he might be.
I had a wild thought of Jaheim Bell, kick returner.
I love it. Jaheim Bell is one of my favorite sort of down the board players in this game. I just did a podcast this week with Marcus, and we were talking about guys outside the top 100, and we got to tight end, and I was like, I don't really care what you call him. Like, Jaheim Bell's one of my guys. Like, he has to go to the right place, but think about like Jaheim Bell as the third tight end with like Shane Waldron, who does tons of three tight end sets. Like, you're going to get a lot of fun usage out of him. And he might be kick returner too on your team. And I would be totally cool with that.
That's also a reason why I could see the Cowboys eschewing offensive line in the second round as well and going with Jonathan Brooks.
We're 2 hours in and use eschewing. I'm impressed.
4 whiskeys deep. That's when the vocabulary gets fun.
I was going to say, it's a $2 word, and I love it.
But anyway, back to BTJ. Cooks is gone. Turpin's probably gone. CD will be re-signed. Tolbert's going to be on his last legs. They need cheap receiver talent with upside because CD's getting $30 million. So,
and remember,
do it.
They're all in.
Did you see Jerry's comments today?
I did.
Saying that he wasn't aware of their cap situation when he was talking at the Senior Bowl.
I did.
It's like, dude,
what, billionaire not aware of money?
It's like, you're signing the checks, bro.
News at 11. Obviously not.
It's your money.
Oh.
Anyway, Packers. Is there a forfeit the pick? Is there a more Packers pick than Cooper DeJean? Because I don't think there is. That's who my pick is for them.
It's been pretty chalky, him or Graham Barton, but Graham Barton is long off the board in this particular mock draft. I'm going to ask you an interesting question about Cooper because I was doing cornerback rankings as well, along with running backs. How do you think Cooper's going to fare in a man-heavy system if he goes there?
Not well.
Not well.
But that's also why I have him as a nickel.
Understood, but like I have concerns, not many. It's a great athlete. Yeah. Again, going to give you value as a kick returner. Could be safety, could be slot, could be corner in a zone heavy system. But if he is in a man heavy system and he gets picked early, I think fans might be a little bit disappointed.
To me, he is such a good tackler. He's great against the run.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big dude. Great instincts. Physical, like he has all the traits you look for from a nickel.
Sure.
And I think he's going to be a really, really, really good nickel, like a Kyle Hamilton type nickel in the NFL. I'm not putting him outside. They already have outside corners. They don't need him outside.
Cool.
They need him inside.
No, I wasn't saying about the Packers. I was just saying.
Oh, just in general. In general. Yeah,
like
no.
If he goes to a man-heavy system and they're like, we're going to put you outside in a man-heavy system, I think the adjustment period, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying the adjustment period is going to be longer and it doesn't put him in a position to highlight his many strengths because he does have many strengths.
He's a Gus Bradley corner, not a Bill Belichick corner.
Yeah.
That's how
fair assessment.
If we're putting him at corner.
Yeah.
All right, next pick. Buccaneers,
baby.
With the Mike Allstott shirt.
Ah, come on. This is the best shirt. I love this shirt.
By the way, you can get that shirt at Homage, our clothing partner. Link
right
down
there.
below.
Right there.
Anything you get at that link, we get a cut of.
And they have draft shirts this year as well. We're going to be wearing them on night one of the draft.
Yes.
And if you're a Detroit fan, you can try for one of only 144 starter jackets.
Oh, they're re-releasing those?
No. Barry Sanders is wearing a starter jacket in Detroit to announce a pick. And they are releasing them lottery style. There are 144 of them.
No shit.
No shit.
Okay. Well, check out that link in the description
if
below.
If you're
Clearly, EJ knows a lot more about the promo than I do.
If you are a crazy Barry Sanders fan, it is a super limited run, but obviously heavily collectible item that's going to be pretty darn cool to see Barry in one of our sponsors' jackets on the podium announcing a pick.
Who isn't a Barry Sanders fan? Everybody loves Barry.
You kind of got to be.
All right, Buccaneers. Edge is a need. The real question comes down to which edge, whether it's Latu, Jared Verse, Chop Robinson. For me, I understand the arguments for Latu, but I have a higher grade on Jared Verse, so I'm going with Jared Verse here. I think it's important to me to have consistent power as your fastball as an edge rusher, which Jared Verse has. Latu does not. I think Latu is going to have 3 and 4 sacks games every now and then because he's going to go up against some like not great tackle that has really shitty hands. He's going to walk all over him,
or a tight end, absolutely eat them for breakfast.
But tackles that have good hands are going to be a problem for Latu because I don't think he can just drop his hips and run through people. Like if somebody takes away, all the Mr. Miyagi stuff, like he struggles. So Jared Verse is somebody who, even if he's going against somebody who has really good hands, he has the kind of power where he can say, fuck it, I'm going to run through you. And at that point, it's really more just about.
So he's the Mike Allstott pass rusher.
Yes, literally, yes.
Okay.
At that point, it's just about, like, I'm just a bigger, meaner, angrier person than you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I love Jared Verse. He could very easily go a lot higher than this.
Yep.
I tried to find spots for him earlier in this mock, and I just couldn't.
This is the way the first round goes every year. People are like, there's no way he'll be available at 20x, right? And he's going at 9, and then they go a different direction. Everybody goes, oh, we never saw that coming. And then Jared Verse and Latu are available at 20x. I love this pick. I love the fit. I think it fits sort of theoretically with the defense the Bucs run, and I think that's very important. I think it is almost imperative that the GM and the coach are aligned on those kind of things, and they get the right players who, again, are great system fits. Happens less than you think, folks. Seems like, well, of course, everybody should do that. Yes, you're right. Everybody should. They don't all. And in that vein, our buddy Luke Easterling was doing a mock today and said Renardo Green 3rd round to the Bucs, and I was like, hand and glove would fit so perfectly with their system, and I think versus the same way at edge.
Pick 27, Cardinals back on the clock.
Monty,
wheeling and dealing. Now, if I was really going to beat Monty, I would have traded out of this pick just because,
or traded up to go get a tackle because he's got the stash of picks.
But in the absence of that,
I
still think they're going to go offensive line here, but a different offensive lineman.
Okay.
I got them taking JPJ finally off the board to play either center or guard.
So their first round is
Rome Odunze and JPJ. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yikes. I like it. I like it a lot. JPJ player I love, super hot on. I've talked to him. He's got a great attitude. I think he's wired like offensive linemen should be wired. So he's definitely super confident, a little bit cocky, likes running over people, stunting on them a little bit. Super powerful, amazingly mobile for his size. Again, went to the Oregon State and Oregon Pro Days back-to-back. So I got to see Taliese Fuaga go through drills run by the same coaches. And then the very next day, JPJ go through the same drills run by the same coaches, and sort of, again, they don't play the same position necessarily, but just getting to see the physical traits of bend and power and speed and get off and all that stuff. He's a fascinating player. He's young, extremely large for a center. He's just much larger than
he's huge. Center. He's built like Travis Frederick.
It's almost 330.
Yeah.
Like he's a huge dude, but he doesn't move like that at all. He's faster, much more agile, bends better. Fascinating player. Just want him to stay healthy. He's had some trouble with concussions. He had some soft tissue stuff, knee, hamstring, ankle, I think this year. just want to see a player like that with so much talent, promise, stay healthy. Because if he does, oh boy, like the sky's the limit for a guy like that.
The fact that he can compete with Froholt at center or compete for either guard spot.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I have him going here.
For sure.
Because we're trying to get the best 5.
What was
right?
the last offensive lineman you picked for a spot?
For Joe Alt, left tackle. That's the only one, I think.
Way up at the top. Everyone else was like, hey, you can play these 2 or these 3.
But that's what happens with offensive line is guys get shifted around and you're trying to find your best 5. And I mean, shit, if you need to play DT, you'll play D. He literally did that at Oregon.
Did play DT.
They were just trying to get him on the field. So like, I'll throw him a 3 tech and in a bowl game.
Go mash people.
Talent's talent, man.
They'll he's a talented player for sure.
All right. While I read off my explanation for pick 28, I'll have you finally raise the blast shields.
Oh.
The sun's finally down, so I'm not going to melt anymore.
Nighttime on Arrakis.
Bills are up. And we had Mina on the podcast, Mina Kimes on the podcast recently, and we got to talking about the Bills in that episode about how it's not really a rebuild, it's more of a reload, but it's a considerable reload. Like they kind of do need a lot. They jettisoned a lot of their core. I think it was 5 of their 8 captains are no longer on the team. So it's a pretty substantial makeover. And then of course you have the Stephon Diggs trade. So now and Stephon Diggs trade and the lost Gabe Davis to Jacksonville. So pretty much the only receiver in quotes that I feel really good about right now are Khalil Shakir and both the tight ends.
Sure.
In terms of outside receivers, I don't feel good about what they have.
Nope. They got to get one.
So the question is, knowing all the other needs that they also have on the team because of the jettisoning of veterans, are we going receiver here because it seems like the biggest need, or are we just going to go BPA? That is the debate in Bills land right now.
Sure.
For me, luckily, it's one and the same. Xavier Legette, come on down.
Can't hate it.
I love Xavier Legette.
Yep.
I think he could go as high as potentially 15 to the Colts. I really do.
Sure.
Depending on if Brock Bowers on the board or not. But I think that's kind of where it starts for him. And I don't think he gets past 32 with the Chiefs. I really don't. And 28 is about as late as I should probably put it on the screen. 28 is about as late as I think he could realistically go. Anything after that, I'm starting to wonder why. Incredible physical talent.
Yep.
Incredible. Burst, long speed, physicality to beat press coverage. Like he's a better route runner than I think people give him credit for. He's 220, but he doesn't move like 220. Mm-hmm. He's kind of got that thick body Debo fluidity where you're like, how are you moving like that when you're built like a brick? Yep. Like he's weird in the sense that he's a lot more fluid than he should be for how rocked up he is. Yes, he had a late breakout. I understand that. We've gone over it several times, the reasons why there was a late breakout. A lot of personal tragedy in his life that he had to go through. Of course, a pandemic, coaching change, yada, yada, yada. But not to mention a position switch. He was converting to receiver. He played quarterback in high school. So there's a lot that went into why Xavier Legette is the prospect that he is. But ultimately, eventually, that talent shone through. And then you get to the 5th year and he does what he did, which is putting up, I think, like an average of like 100 yards a game, something like that. Yeah. So I love Xavier Legette. I understand the hesitation that people have because of the late breakout, but I'm not super worried about it because of the circumstances of that late breakout. And I'm just more focusing on the talent. I'm focusing on the person. I'm focusing on the work ethic. He shouldn't be here, but he is. So I'm taking him at 28.
I mean, what else are you going to do at this point? And that's not a knock on Legette. I too love Legette, but you got to be realistic. You are not picking at the top of the first round, right? You are picking damn near the bottom of the first round. And it is a wide receiver heavy draft. We've had several very quality players already come off the board. and you need one. And one is still there, and you can argue, oh, he's not this, he's not that. It's a damn good prospect that you're getting at the tail end of the first round. A great match with how Josh can throw it. Do you see him as an X or a Z? Like
X.
Ideally.
X.
You see him as X?
I do. He's one of the few guys that in this class that I see as an X, truly. And that's because he's physical enough to beat press coverage and not get pushed around. Now, I have Malik Nabers going significantly higher than him, but I don't think Malik is an X. I think Xavier's an X. The grade is different,
sure, but
role-wise, that's where I see him.
Cool.
Which I know some people are like, "What? That doesn't make any sense." It's not all about grade. Sometimes it's about role.
The last 2 hours don't make any sense.
Like, just because you're an X receiver doesn't automatically mean you're graded above guys that are slots. Like,
Correct.
That's not how it works. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lions. Terrion Arnold, DB, Alabama.
Again, because this is me just adjusting my mental slate of the first corner didn't go until
22.
I'm like, wait, Terrion Arnold's here? And I'm sure that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are saying the same thing. Like, wait, we get Terrion Arnold here? Let's go.
And he is such a Dan Campbell corner because he tackles. He can actually tackle. And he was a 5-star safety when he was recruited, right? Yeah. So he was brought in as a safety, and then they were like, well, I think you can actually play corner. And then, so he played corner. But, like, he tackles like a safety.
You can play some corner, that's for sure. No, this is a great fit. It fits need. Honestly, Brad Holmes, I said how he was doing backflips. I don't know what Brad Holmes would be doing if Terrion Arnold's here, because that's just like pennies from heaven. Yes, please. It's what the Ravens have done for years, right? Wait at the back end of the first round and go, well, this guy's here. Seems like a pretty good football player. We'll take that guy. That would be the Detroit Lions in this era, which seems a very odd move from 3 years ago. But here we are, team that pushed into the playoffs and is now getting Terrion Arnold at the end of the first round. Okay.
He can play outside. His best spot might be inside, but they already got Brian Branch there, so it's not like they need that.
Just keep stacking Alabama DBs.
Why not? But he can play outside, and believe it or not, only had one missed tackle against the run the entire year. Which
no, he's a dog.
If you're
TFLs, tackles, like a lot of corners, and I don't love corners.
Don't throw screens at him.
I do not love corners that don't tackle, and I love Terrion Arnold. He can tackle a bunch. He is a very talented player there.
Brings us to the Ravens. Speaking of the Ravens, I'm going to tease this while I fix the camera because we're a little bit dark.
No, we were light. Now we're dark.
EJ, when you think of Ravens drafts,
yes,
what do you think of?
I think of picking up dollars that other people dropped.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think of grabbing talent at the end of the first round that lots of people said, oh, they won't be there. Right? That's not going to happen. And the Ravens just sit there. They're very patient. They very rarely trade up. They just sit there and wait. They are masters of letting the board come to them.
What players on the board right now that shouldn't be on the board?
Oh, I don't know.
At edge, specifically. That fits them like a glove.
Oh, Latu.
There you go.
Yeah, no, and
Latu Chad has been yelling about over and over and over again.
The thing about Latu that freaks me out, that again, when you go back, much like we talked about Byron Murphy, and you go back and you go, wait, he's only 6'1", he's only 295. You go to Latu, he's like, oh, he's 260?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's a big dude. Now, we talked about him not necessarily playing that big. They mentioned that when I was on the radio in Chicago the other night. They're like, well, he doesn't play like he's 260. And to a point, you said the same thing. Like, he's not a straight power guy. He's a big dude. You see that guy go up against tight ends who are like 240, 235. Just overwhelming. He's a big dude. Hand usage, they can't keep up with his foot speed. And then you're like, oh, he can just kind of shoulder lean through those guys. Now, that's not going to work against tackles, but big dude, really solid, technically proficient. The Ravens have been a little bit less, if there's a slider between potential and developed, right? They tend to take some prospects that are like, well, they're already really well developed. We like them. We don't really care that it's not a ceiling gamble for them at the end of and I think they've stayed away from a lot of misses at the end of the first round because of that, right?
They just take guys who are good football players.
Right. They're like he's a good football player right now.
Yeah.
And that's Latu.
And I wouldn't say they're desperate for edge, but they could use another one.
Oh, for sure.
And
a player like that.
In
right? terms of production.
Especially when edge kind of falls off a cliff pretty early in this
They're
class.
not going to sneeze at it. That's for sure.
I would rather do Latu now and then address one of like the quote unquote higher needs on day 2, knowing that if I'm lucky, the edge I'm getting on day 2 is Mo Camara.
Yeah, no. In terms of, again, that classic flip of if I do this now, what do I get later for the other position? Like Latu being there is a gift, and the Ravens, above all teams, don't really look to give horses in the mouth. They just take the pick.
Also, this means we get Latu against JC Latham twice a year, which should be super fun. All right. 49ers. Can I fit another offensive lineman in this first round?
Oh, I bet you can.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Now, this offensive lineman is a developmental one. I don't necessarily think he's going to be starting week 1, but they kind of need to get him ready for the future.
Fair enough.
Because Trent is getting older. And to be honest, I'm not like a super big Colton McKivitz guy anyway. So maybe he will play sooner rather than later.
Are we going to hear from those people, the super big Colton McKivitz guys?
There shouldn't be that many of them. But like we have to start planning for the future. And B, we need to give ourselves another option if McKivitz just doesn't get better. So Tyler Guyton. Freak show, developmental freak show, but freak show. Come on down, learn from fellow. Blame the Bushmills.
I was going to say, is Feller their new OL coach?
Fellow Oklahoma alum. There we go. That's how you say words, EJ.
And even string them together.
What was I saying? Yes, Tyler Guyton. Learn from.
Fellow Oklahoman.
I should not drink 4.
You probably shouldn't. But
I think that'll be my last one.
He's fascinating. You say that now. Guyton's fascinating because when we talk about ceiling and floor, like his ceiling is way up there. And we talked to some folks that we know who are close to the Oklahoma program before and at the combine. We were like, so tell us about Guyton. I mean, we want to know about Rouse too, but like, tell us about Guyton. They're like, well, let me tell you, and there's a full bevy of tall tales about Guyton from the Oklahoma program because guys with that many gifts at that age.
Oh, it's like you're hearing about Paul Bunyan,
they're Paul Bunyan-esque stories.
Where it's like, I don't know if I can say this because I don't know if it's real, but it's fucking impressive.
Yeah, and to be able to, again, grab that talent at the end of the first round, like you said, to get prep, not to play him this year, but to have that guy, in the room, learning from those guys, becoming a pro, taking the rough edges off his game. If he has to play right away, like he'll learn fast, and he's got the physical skills to defeat a lot of the, absolute mad dogs at edge that they're going to see. And on the days he loses, he's going to learn a lot,
I mean, practice against that 49ers defensive line is going to teach him some lessons.
A lot in a hurry.
If nothing else, he'll learn in practice.
For sure.
All right, 32, Chiefs. I'm going to do this last pick before my brain just completely shuts off from the whiskey.
Before you go off in a puff of smoke.
By the way, for dinner, we're just eating bread. I hope you know that. Bread and rice. That's what we're doing.
Bread and rice.
All right, Chiefs. That's a difficulty at receiver this offseason so far. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with Rashee Rice. With
Rashee Rice? What are the statistics about Rashee Rice?
With Rashee Rice, we don't know what's going to happen with him. But even if none of that happened, I still probably would have taken receiver anyway because they still need another one.
It's been a very chalky pick through the entire draft cycle.
And I'm going to be very chalky with it myself. So, Keon Coleman, you are a Kansas City Chief. Where do you have Coleman?
I have him at the end of my second tier, but that's about 7th or 8th overall. So, I mean, he's up there. He's a fascinating guy in that he does not win like other receivers in this class, but he does win.
That's the thing is like you're looking at the yards of separation per route, whatever the statistic is. I don't necessarily care about that because they ran him on so many go balls. Like Of course, his separation is going to be lower if you're running him on fades like 30% of the time, which is what they did.
Yep.
So, like, I'm not super worried about that stat. If you're looking at him when he was inside, in the slot, running, say, a crossing route, running a 7, something like he's separated. On those specifically, he's separated.
And he's trouble. I don't care whether he's separated or not. He had 0 drops this year.
He's a great contested catcher. Much better after the catch than I think people give him credit for. People see him as like this Alshon Jeffrey type. That's like he's a post-up guy down the field. It's the one. No, he's actually really good with the ball in his hands. I would actually say he's slippery. That's the word I would use for him. I think he's a day one starter as a power slot.
Yeah. He is a matchup problem. You can put him, again, where we said earlier, with Malik Nabers, slot or Z. I really think it's like X or slot for him. You can put him as that post-up X, right? And he's just going to win in a different way. He's not D-Hop, but he's got more of that to his game in that he's going to win that way. He's not going to win just straight go balls down the field. He's not going to win all over the field, but there are places he can win. And then, if we like the matchup and they've got some 5'8", 5'9" nickel in there, we're going to slide Keon over the slot and be like, ha.
Go punch that guy in the face.
Yeah.
that's what he'll do.
And so I think he's a versatile player. He is not like a lot of the other receivers in this draft. So it was hard for me to kind of slot him in because it's not like, the other guy like him there's not really another guy like him in this draft. So it was harder for me to find a spot for him, but he's a very talented player. Very sure-handed player. Again, Mahomes finds a way to make everybody work. He would absolutely find a way to make Keon Coleman work.
I'm trying to find, where did I put there we go. So I'm sharing the whole mock here. If people want a recap. So number 1, we got Caleb Williams to the Bears. We got Drake May to the Commies. We got Jayden Daniels to the Patriots at number 3. We got the Giants trading up to number 4 for J.J. McCarthy, giving up a 3rd-round pick. We've got Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Chargers at 5, Odunze to the Cardinals at 6, Joe Alt to the Titans at 7, Dallas Turner to the Falcons at 8, Troy Fautanu to the Bears at 9, Taliese Fuaga to the Jets at 10, Jerzon Newton to the Vikings at 11, Bo Nix to the Broncos at 12. I'm sure Brandon Perna just loved that one. Malik Nabers finally off the board to the Raiders at 13. Olu Fashanu to the Saints at 14. Brock Bowers to the Colts at 15. Graham Barton, offensive line extraordinaire that can play all 5 spots, to the Seahawks at 16. A.D. Mitchell over Quinyon Mitchell to the Jags at 17. Byron Murphy to the Bengals at 18. Amarius Mims to the Rams at 19 to be their new left tackle. J.C. Latham to the Steelers at 20 to be their new right tackle. Zach Frazier to be the Dolphins' new center at 21. Quinyon Mitchell finally off the board at 22 to the Eagles. Michael Penix Jr., a little bit of a reach, but a necessary reach, to the Vikings at 23. Brian Thomas Jr. to the Cowboys at 24. Cooper DeJean to the Packers at 25. Jared Verse to the Bucks at 26. JPJ to the Cardinals at 27. Xavier Legette to the Bills at 28. Terrion Arnold to the Lions at 29. Latu, somehow, of course, to the Ravens at 30.
Of course.
Tyler Guyton to the 49ers at 31. And Keon Coleman to the Chiefs at 32. How would you grade me?
How would I grade you? It was very different in a lot of spots. And like any mock draft, it's the butterfly effect, right? Once that happens, it turns and, the supply and demand thing comes into effect and teams either panic or don't, or go, yeah, damn it, we're not going to get what we want and trade down, or all that is why it makes it so fascinating. When I say it's the highest stakes poker game on the planet, I mean it. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars per hand here. And it is really interesting to see it come down to a bunch of people in a room. And we see these videos every year where they go, what are we going to do here, guys? Like, we've done all this work. We have all these grades. We know we got 2 guys. What are we going to do? We're going to stick a pick. We're going to trade. We're going to pick, this guy or that guy. And those are the decisions that turn franchises. You do it well, you stay in power, you win football games, everything's good. You do it poorly, you get fired. Like, that's it.
Chad is asking for a bonus Panthers pick.
Oh, yeah, because they didn't have a first rounder for sure.
I'm going to give it to him.
It can't be Lad McCarthy.
I'm not going to give it to him. Who else would it be?
That's the thing is, Mina said this on our pod. Is Panthers fans were hounding her for a pick, and she didn't read all the way through the question. She was like, Lad McConkey. And she read the second half of the question and said, anybody except Lad McConkey. He's a natural. I mean, they need people that separate. He's one of the best pure separators in this draft. I get it. Not as big of a Lad McConkey fan as some other. I do like his game, but I do have significant worries about him as a player. And if I'm Dave Canales in that regime, I am very wary of players that might not make it for any reason. I want to take like the most solid player I can.
So if I'm going Lad, who would be yours?
I'd have to look at the whole board. I'm definitely not going to pick an O-lineman because there's none left.
There's none left at all.
They don't need defensive line. None of the edges have slipped. Corner would not be terrible.
So that would be like Kool-Aid?
You could definitely sell me on Kool-Aid for that pick. Are
you a Wiggins guy that high?
Wiggins is my 4. I thought he was going to be lower. I came into this process. Everybody said Wiggins was going to be a great player. I try not to listen to a ton of that. Keep it as clean as I can. I watched the film. I was whelmed. I was not over or underwhelmed, but I was not like, oh, dude, this is my top corner. I was like, feels like it'll be in the mix. Came back to him again later, which is something I like to do. Watched a bunch of other games and got a little bit higher on him, mostly because of his tackling ability. Like he's a dog. He'll stick his face in there, and I appreciate that from a corner. Coverage skills are pretty obvious. Speed's great. So he ended up as my 4th corner, which is no shame in that. Still top tier.
What about Xavier Worthy? Would you do Xavier Worthy at 33?
Probably not with the way they're set up right now.
So receivers that we have available.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy
it's
specifically
Lad,
because it's like, do you really see Bryce bombing it to Xavier Worthy all the time?
No, I don't.
I don't. So
Ricky?
I like Ricky a lot. If you're
Pearsall.
looking for pure separation, yeah, Ricky Pearsall from Florida. I think he's a more complete receiver and will probably play a larger role for them for a longer time. But then again, I'm a bit snake bitten on picking receivers I think will work out for the Panthers because they don't always.
Yeah, we're like 0 for 7 on that.
Yeah, there's been a couple I've been like, this is the guy. And I'm like, no. I feel kind of like Chargers fans. This is the year.
If you could guarantee me that off the field he was going to work out.
Oh, Burton.
Jermaine Burton at 33.
Yeah.
If you could guarantee.
But with Canales being new in that building, I think that's like the highest risk pick they could take.
But like, if you told me Jermaine Burton's a choir boy for the next 10 years, I'm like, holy fuck, yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it.
He would be off the board before those other guys. But just the way it sits, if it was like straight up between Lad and Ricky, I would have to be really sure about Lad's medicals. Like really sure about them.
Yeah.
Because he's a great football player when he's on the field, but availability is a thing. And Ricky Pearsall's a dog. He's got great hands. Not as elite as a separator, but I think wins in other areas. So it's a bit of a balance, but I would probably lean Ricky. It's close. It's absolutely close.
I want to remind everybody, again, one more time, if you weren't here before, we are going to be live for every single pick of the draft, not on this channel, but over on the Bootleg Football Podcast channel. That is linked down in the description below. We do like 17 to 18 hours of live streams during all of draft weekend. We'll be right here from my apartment in LA, drinking all of the 8 bottles that I brought back from Ireland.
Or maybe not all, but yeah.
It's a significant portion.
A significant portion. Yes. Year 5.
Year 5 doing this?
Year 5, which is crazy.
I know. This show is as old as my marriage, believe it or not. It's really, again, it's a second marriage for me.
Third rough comp.
One of my marriages is going pretty well, EJ. Which one are you? No.
Do I have to guess now?
No. Actually, both my marriages are going pretty well. Me and my wife had a wonderful time in Ireland.
Yeah. Sounds like a fantastic trip.
Cliffs of Moher, by the way. If you guys ever get a chance to go see it, please do. It's incredible. I don't understand how that's not one of like the
World Heritage Sites.
Yeah, like that's an
Yeah.
that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. So go to Ireland, get some whiskey, take the significant other, have a magical time like we did. To my wonderful wife Nicole, if you're watching this, I love you, honey. I will see you in a couple days. Anyway, we're gonna get out of here. See you in a couple days for the draft.